from the Untold Radio Network. It's Untold Radio AM with Monster Quest producer, host Doug Hajicek, and co-host Jeff Perrella Jr. Untold Radio AM is going live right now.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Doug.
We have a lot of people in chat.
Yeah.
Ready? So hello to our Untold Radio family. And anybody watching
all here
live, if you're watching live right now, you can join the chat. We'll have like 500, 600, 700 people just in YouTube right when we start watching live. So don't be afraid to get into chat. People will welcome you.
Absolutely.
Won't they, Jeff?
Absolutely. Love having people in the chat. It's got a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tonight we have an amazing guest.
Big time.
We've been waiting to get him on. So like he is a very amazing guest with a capital V, Dr. Robert Michael Pyle. Now, this is the man that walked across in real life, walked across the Great Divide, which is,
amazing.
He can explain a little bit better, but it's the area, I think it starts at the Pinchot Gifford National Forest, which I've been to many times, and then goes all the way somewhere. I don't know exactly where it ends, but he eventually, after over 30 days, makes it up. So
it's an amazing story.
And I know you've watched the movie, which
I just watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's different than real life, but we'll get that from
it's a fun movie.
Yeah. So, but he got a solo. He walked solo, but he got a Guggenheim grant that
that's a big deal.
Made his way to take a month and whatever off, and the equipment he needed to do this. And I think he wrote a paper. I haven't read the book, full disclosure, because if I read the book, I wouldn't be curious.
I just got it today. I'm looking forward to reading it.
You did? Okay. So I will get the book after I meet Robert. So, but he wrote a book called Where Bigfoot Walks. Throw up photo 1. We'll show the movie here. This is the movie that's on Amazon. I recommend you watch it.
Yep.
It's good, it doesn't have.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's a refreshing movie. Thank God. I'm so sick of watching Bigfoot movies that are, not subtle, and this one's extremely subtle.
It's beautifully filmed too.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautifully filmed.
Yeah. If you like great scenery and an adventure, it's a good movie. What else? So then we're going to have a tech breakdown tonight, and we're going to kind of skim through all of our stuff. But I heard a very chilling story, and I kind of wanted to share it. This kind of stuff that me and Jeff like to talk about. But I read this story of it's kind of basically it's chilling because it really makes you think. And I think we all have kind of a gut feeling about this.
Mm-hmm.
Throw up photo 2, Jeff, and it'll kind of. So it is about a heart transplant. Okay, but this is chilling. So it's about a girl. She was brutally murdered, unalived, by some man with a knife he apparently was never caught. But some bystander even heard her killer say a certain phrase before he started stabbing her. Okay, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And apparently then her heart was salvaged, as they often do, especially with young people, or organs were donated, transplanted into another teen. This teen that gets her heart heals up, but she starts having immediately terrible nightmares, like so bad. She has to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I'm not sure which. And he realizes that she's not having bad nightmares. She is having memories, post-traumatic stress syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he realizes she's having memories. And of course, where it gets really weird is this is the girl that's got the heart of the woman or the girl that was stabbed.
Right.
She's actually remembering the murder and all of these things in this one phrase that she keeps hearing. So the psychologist or psychiatrist contacts the police. They bring in a forensic sketch artist. They sketch the guy from her memories, and they proceed to catch this guy. And when they nab this guy, he confesses right away to this murder. Wow. And he even confessed to this, what he told her before she died, and it was the exact phrase. Now, we're all taught from an early age, our brain does all the thinking, not our hearts. And this is a very clear example of, and this isn't the first time this has happened, but it's another very clear example that our memories are stored in many places that we don't know. We don't understand the human body. Don't you? I mean, don't you agree, Jeff? We don't know anything about the human body.
The more I learn, the more I know that we don't know anything. It's amazing.
Exactly.
We know a tiny little bit of stuff, and there's so much out there we don't know. You got to be open to it. I don't know.
Yeah. And there was another, just today was kind of a weird day. I was running these weird stories. Another story I heard, and I don't have any photo to go with this, but there was this guy he lives in Romania, gets up to go to work, looks like any other day in 1991, gets dressed. He actually puts on a new shirt, takes the train every day to work. So he has to have a train ticket each day. And he takes the train to work, and he works a long day, and he comes home. Well, this day he never showed up for work, and he never came home. Of course, there's a police search, all the normal routine things. He was a real happy, good family man, blah, 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 blah. 2021, he shows up at home like it's any other normal day.
30 years later.
Yeah, he hasn't looked in a mirror. He doesn't know it. He doesn't know he's aged 30 years. He doesn't know anything. He just comes home, but he's got that unused train ticket in his pocket.
Wow.
And he's got the shirt that he left with, that they had given to the police, like this is description of this plaid shirt that he had worn, this blue plaid shirt. And the shirt was like new. I mean, it hadn't been used. It was everything but his body. Isn't that just give you we don't know anything?
No, it's crazy, man.
I just know I don't want to have that happen to me.
No, no.
Put yourself in
That'd be awful.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a weird thing. All right, anyhow, let's get into some news, and we'll bring on Robert at the end of the or at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
Untold radio news that can be a bit weird is right now.
Okay, I know who Ross Kohart is, but he's kind of done it again. He just keeps bringing these whistleblowers. They keep coming to him because he's a respected journalist, and he's really into this. And this thing is literally making this guy world famous.
Yeah.
So another Air Force veteran named Fred Baker, right, comes forward. And this was just released. I just watched it. He shares his UAP experiences. And once again, another guy that backs up Jake Barber's story of UAP recovery. Another guy, which is really, really interesting as these people keep coming forward. I would imagine the governments, or whoever's keeping the secrets, is kind of freaking out. But go ahead and play on this, just maybe a soundbite.
You want it queued to about 15:30.
Yeah, right about in there. I just play up whatever till we get a little idea, and then I want you guys to check that out maybe later tonight. Go ahead and play it.
He said he's only seen it 2 other times, and I turned around, and that's when this massive triangle was in the sky. And please don't ask me to figure out how big it was.
Apparently, the ship was conjured, through this psychic stuff.
For sure, probably more. It was
football field size?
bigger.
Multiple football fields?
for sure.
Wow.
The,
How far away?
I couldn't tell you. I had already been shocked and awed with this one little thing, and then now they presented this massive thing with other little things going on as well.
Apparently there
Like
were
what?
orbs going around it.
So the triangle itself, it was moving west to east, very slowly. The lead point of the triangle was very bright.
All right,
The
that's
two
enough.
ends.
I don't want to get in trouble for showing too much, but definitely check it out. It's a good interview. Super good interview. All right. Apparently the Boom supersonic aircraft has done a test flight. And I cannot wait to ride a supersonic aircraft to Europe. I'm going to take a trip to Europe if they ever get this thing, running and the tickets are reasonable. But apparently this thing, they did a test. I don't think they exceeded 770 miles an hour. So that Mach 1.
Mhm.
And that's what they did. And so it was, so this is a passenger jet meant to succeed the Concorde. That's the purpose
Right.
of it. It looks pretty small though, doesn't it? Like
Yeah,
really-
it doesn't. Yeah, and maybe it's more efficient. Who knows? The problem with the Concorde is it was incredibly inefficient. It
Yeah.
required more downtime, more inspections and repairs.
And it was huge.
It was huge, and it required so much work in between flights. There's just no way that it could have been viable. It was just
So
hopelessly expensive.
Wondering if this is more like a private jet situation. I don't know.
I
It
don't
doesn't
know.
mention how many passengers, but I'm going to guess under 30. And
Yeah.
apparently they did a flight of 45 minutes, and that's it. They had to get all this special permission, and because of the sonic boom that they break. So
Yeah, the world keeps getting smaller. It's amazing.
looking forward to it. I still can't
Yeah.
believe it's been 50 years since the last flight of the Concorde.
Yeah.
That just seems weird to me. Like, if there was a problem with that plane, why didn't they just immediately fix it? Come out with another model like the year after or whatever.
There's a lot of politics involved in that story.
Yeah, I think there's
it's
something else.
It's worth a deep
Once
dive.
again, I'm going to predict someday we're going to know there was something else.
Oh, probably. Well, there was a bit of a argument between the French government and our government and the British government, and there's egos and politics and money. It's worth a deep dive. It's quite a story. I'm surprised no one's made a movie of it yet. It's a pretty crazy story.
Or a book.
Rise and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I was also thinking about another idea for a movie is all these, the Chinese just announced these combat drones that they can put up literally like 10,000 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then those drones can spit out smaller drones. I just watched the film of it. I'm thinking there hasn't been any horror movies about drones. I find that a little odd.
How do you defend against that?
You
you get a
can't.
swarm. You can't. I just don't it's. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Picture
Terrifying.
10,000 drones attacking something.
All coordinated with AI. Yeah, it's crazy.
Or
There's just
net
no way to
that they
defend
could-
against that.
Or the net that they could put up in front of an airplane.
Yeah.
A combat airplane.
Yeah. It's kind of making combat, making
Yeah,
fighter aircraft obsolete.
yeah. And you couple the drones with AI
Mm-hmm.
where they can, individually communicate with each other on some intelligent level. It's just getting weird.
Mm-hmm.
Getting weird.
Big mesh network. It's crazy.
All right. On a funner note, scientists say it may be impossible to sneeze when you sleep. And I never thought about that. Have you, Jeff?
No, I know you can't sneeze with, you can't sneeze with your eyes closed. Is that right?
I don't know that. That's all. Okay. I'm going to pay attention.
Pretty sure you can't sneeze with your eyes closed. You'll blow your eyeballs.
I think you close them
So
while you're sneezing. Like while you're sneezing, your eyes kind of shut for a second.
Yeah.
But it says here, it says in the article, have you ever sneezed so loudly in the middle of the night that you've woken yourself up? Think about it. The answer is likely no. So apparently sleep researchers, many of them and neuroscientists, think it's essentially impossible to sneeze while you sleep. And I never thought about that. And they mention all the physiology that happens to your body before a sneeze. And it's quite interesting. Although they're all admitting they've never tried to induce a sneeze on somebody that's sleepy, like blow dust at them or
Sure.
pepper. That would be the real test.
That would be traumatic, I
So
think.
if we ever go camping, Jeff, I'm going to test you. Just so you know,
It's science. It's science. Sure, why not?
I'm warning you. Yeah, then I'll know. Oh, yeah. Did you know? Did you know your heart apparently changes rhythm when you sneeze, which I didn't know. I did know a sneeze can travel up to 100 miles an hour, and I did know spray from people's sneezes can travel. It says 5 feet, and I'm like, no way. I'm thinking more like hundreds of feet because you add wind in there. Yeah, maybe in a vacuum it only goes 5 feet.
Yeah,
but add a little breeze.
I think I've been sprayed at more than 5 feet away.
Well, guess how many droplets come out in a sneeze?
Oh man, I can't even imagine. Lots.
40,000.
Yikes.
And
So
then,
cover your nose when you sneeze, everyone. Be polite.
absolutely. Well, it's that time of year. That's why I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
I've been lucky so far. Gosh, knock on wood. But
Me too.
how many pints of mucus do you think we produce each day? It's crazy.
It's something I never thought of.
No, why would you?
Yeah.
You have to be a sick bastard to think about mucus. Why would you want to think about that? Okay,
I want less.
2 pints every day.
Wow.
And your mucus should be clear, it says. Otherwise, it could point to an infection if it's brown or green. Okay. And no two people ever sneeze the same way. Now, I'd like to see you prove that one.
Yeah, how do you prove that?
Yeah. And then we have maybe the first shark born in an aquarium with no male. It was a female shark. They've had it for years. It gets, didn't even know it was pregnant, and it has a pup, I guess, or whatever you call it. I'll bet you.
Yeah, shark is a pup. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Robert would know. I have no idea. But this is Yoko. It is a swell shark. And it's a mysterious birth story because this baby swell shark was born in Shreveport Aquarium earlier this month. And apparently it kicked off their 2025 season with this mysterious birth because there was no males ever in that tank. And we've all heard of I have a hard time saying this, so forgive me, parthenogenesis. I have to say it kind of slowly. But that's when, there's several I know about reptiles, and I think Komodos can do that, or some monitor lizards. Once again,
I know some amphibians can.
Yeah.
I know some frogs can. It's actually a plot point in the Jurassic Park novel. Pretty big plot point in the Jurassic Park novel. I don't think in the movie. Parthenogenesis.
God, that's a tongue twister. But apparently, other higher vertebrates like sharks, snakes, other birds. It says some birds may reproduce this way from time to time if it really is required. Safety net, I guess, for extinction.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Speaking of extinction, the bees aren't doing all that great. So they've decided to put tiny QR codes and glue them onto 30,000 bees. Now that sounds like a big job.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey, Jeff, you want to come over and glue QR codes on bees? I used to get calls kind of like that. I would get calls to go net eagles or raptors and band them or tag fish. At one time, I got called to help do surgery on fish to put little transducers at a bass tournament where these guys from the U of M wanted to study if the bass go back to where they were caught.
Oh, interesting.
Just hang around the dock area where they were released, and how long did it take them to get back to home base?
Sure.
And I don't think I ever got my answer, but I helped them all day.
It's interesting.
We put them in like anesthetic water, this blue stuff, and they would kind of go numb. Then we'd do the surgery and put it right into their stomach cavity. Yeah. Anyhow, but I don't want to glue QR codes on bees. And obviously, you know why they're doing it, to better track pollinators, their travel habitats, life cycles, and so forth. So
bees are incredibly important. I think people are finally figuring that out.
You know, and I really want to ask the good doctor whether there is a huge population decline in butterflies, because when I was a kid, there were butterflies everywhere. And I just don't see many anymore. We used to see like these white ones and yellow ones, nothing fancy. You know, we'd see monarchs, and I do see a monarch occasionally, but there were butterflies. Any open field would be just covered with them, and now none, zero. And I'm talking, you know, back in the 60s and 70s.
Well, fortunately, we're going to have a lepidopterist to talk to. I just love saying that. I love saying that word. What a great
good.
word.
I'm glad, because you can say it. You can say it for me. If I snap my fingers, then you say that word, okay?
Lepidopterist.
Is that a deal?
Butterfly expert. Yeah, I love that word.
Okay, so
I'm excited to talk to him.
If you hear me going like that, then you say the word. Okay, then next, and I think last, is oyster blood could fight superbugs. So apparently they found that oysters are constantly filtering out bacteria from the water. And apparently that's a good place, they think, to look for antibiotics. And thank you for putting that up. It says in the future, oysters might help in a global fight against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And apparently they've already found a protein in the blood. It's a hemolymph of the Sydney rock oyster that already has some antibiotics in it. So interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe, does that explain why people can eat raw oysters in most cases and not croak, not unalive themselves?
Who knows? I don't know much about that.
Have you ever eaten a raw oyster, Jeff?
I did, and I'm not a fan at all.
Okay.
I'll try to eat just about everything people eat, and that's one thing that I tried it. Not a fan.
Yeah,
just a weird...
I've tried it too. I spent an entire afternoon trying it over and over, and that was the last time.
Yeah, I was at the seafood buffet at the Rio Casino in Vegas years ago. They had that. I'm like, oh, look at that! I got to try raw oysters, and we immediately regretted it and went back to crab legs.
Well, I flew down to New Orleans back in the 70s with was it Braniff Airline stewardess invited me to go with her to New Orleans for the day. And that's what we did all day. We drank and did, slurped raw oysters. Anyhow, what are you going to do?
Not for me. Worth a try, though. You should try it, though.
When you're a young dude, you're not going to, make a squirmy face when some good-looking stewardess asks you to, enjoy oysters with her. You're just going to take it like a man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Tech breakdown. Let's do it.
Tech breakdown. Hold on and boom. Technological breakdown.
Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a lecture today. I'm joking, but I am going to kind of lecture, and that is on dash cams. So a friend of mine called me on, I think it was Saturday, and he was all excited because he had bought a dash cam, and guess what happened? He had a Bigfoot run in front of his car on his way to a hockey game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you seen the video?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm analyzing it right now.
Oh, cool.
And he did find footprints today over there that are frozen and 7 feet apart in one spot. So this thing zipped in front of his car, but it got me thinking. And he even mentioned, he's like, Doug, you got to push these trail cams on people. And it's so true, because I remember a memory, this true story. I won't give the name out, but I was with a researcher in the Pinchot Gifford National Forest, and we were driving out of there slowly on a 2-track trail, a lot lot of limbs and brush and, it's scraping against your car. And all of a sudden he slams his brakes on. Just slams them on. And he sees what he says is a Bigfoot doing like this airplane thing. Like it's just right there in the trail. And it's like shifting its arms up at one angle and then down the other angle. And then, of course, noticed the van and took off into the forest. He took after it, which was great. My point is, if he would have had a dash cam,
Sure,
we might be looking at the world's best footage. If there was a couple of times where I am guilty of that. And so let's talk about getting how you can get a dash cam. If you don't know what to buy, I can kind of help here. First thing to do, get this, throw up photo 8, Jeff, because you're going to need still going to need a power port in your car. You're going to use one full time. You're never going to give up that power port. And you're going to want to do a power port that powers down when you turn the key off. So when you turn the key on, start your car, the dash cam just starts rolling and it's recording and buffering. So every 12 hours, whatever kind of memory card you have, it will just record over. You'll never have to change it. You shouldn't have to service it. This, how much do you think that costs, Jeff? This little, it's got a voltage gauge on it too.
No more than $20.
$8.99. That's it.
Yeah,
So that's
cool.
not expensive. All right, throw up photo 9. We're talking about a cheap base model.
Hold on.
Well, it's fine. I'll just keep
There we
going.
go.
It's a cheap base model, a cheaper, inexpensive. Hate to use the word cheap. I think the quality is good. This, first off, let me give you the price. This is only, I think, $28.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
It's amazing how cheap that stuff is.
So it's $28, but notice it doesn't have an LCD screen, and it doesn't have a backup camera, but it does record very well day and night. It does have infrared, frame rate of 30. It's got about 150 degree, wide angle lens. You just stick it on with a suction cup up on your upper windshield, plug it in and forget about it. It does not come with an SD card. So if you have a bunch of SD cards laying around, this might be yours. Remember, all you have to do is have one SD card that works with it, and that one can stay in it forever.
Sure.
Right. So
they're so cheap now. It's amazing how cheap those are.
Right. You never need to swap them out. Throw it in. And this one does not have GPS coordinates. Many of them now, until you get into about the $200 range, do not. Now, the GPS coordinates are maybe great if you get in a car accident. And it might help you if you have a sighting and you get it on film. It wouldn't hurt. But on the same token, it's filming where the sighting would happen. And that's usually evidence enough for size comparisons and so on. Because, it's going to film that telephone pole or that fifth line on the road past, Farmer Bill's mailbox. So,
right.
So generally it's not, I wouldn't worry about the GPS. That's the least of my worries. Yeah. But you want something that's going to record automatically. You're going to want Wi-Fi. Most of them have Wi-Fi so they can communicate with your phone. So you don't need to unplug that little miniature tiny card. And that's it. All right. So throw up photo 10. It's a step up. And I'm only going to talk about 2. These are both low end, but really nice pieces of equipment. This one even has a metal body on it. It's got a front and rear camera. It's corded. Comes with the memory card, 64 gig. That's a pretty big memory card. They're not that cheap. And comes with good instructions. Even comes with a tool so you can tuck the wires in your dash.
Oh, wow.
A tucking tool.
Yeah.
So you don't damage your dash. So that's really cool. It does have a G sensor, loop recording, which you always need, night vision. It's got a parking monitor, which is really cool if you're a camper and you park your truck. And once again, if I had a nickel for every call I get where it's like someone was messing with my truck last night. Well, this would record whatever's messing with your truck.
Sure.
So it's going to work for you even when the truck is parked. It goes to sleep. It senses, it's got a passive sensor. Anything walks by it, it turns on, starts recording. It's brilliant.
That's really
brilliant. Cool. Literally, had a guy just the other day, might have been yesterday. A Bigfoot left a bunch of handprints on his windshield, big handprint, and he thought it was like trying to get the sticker off from the inside of the window. It looked like it was trying to claw at that sticker. But the sticker, it's like the oil change sticker.
Sure.
On the inside of the window.
Yeah.
Anyhow, these incidents happen so often. There's no more excuse, is my lesson tonight. There is no excuse not to get a dash cam. Plus, could really save your butt in a liability suit nowadays with all the bad drivers.
For sure. Boy, I had a close call last night coming home.
There you go.
I almost T-boned somebody. It was crazy.
Was
he came
it
out of a
his
side
fault?
street. 100%.
Yeah.
He just blazed out of a side. I was on a thoroughfare. He ran a stop sign, and if I wasn't paying attention, I would have T-boned him.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
So you would have had proof then. You don't have a dash cam, do you, Jeff?
No.
Well,
you
got to get one. So now you can get one. You can get one for what? He may not even be $28. Might have been $19.
That's amazing.
It's called the V300. So look it up on Amazon, or 300V. That's the cheap one. And it's fine. You don't need a back camera, but it's pretty cool for another $10 more. You got a back camera, so if anything's messing with your car, it's pretty cool.
Really cool.
Plus, Bigfoots have known to cross behind people.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think anything else. That's it. I don't think that there's any excuse. All right, let's do 5-minute witness.
Okay.
And then we've got just a real quick, you be the judge, and then we're going to bring Dr. Robert Michael Pyle on.
Okay.
It's time for 5-minute witness. Short stories of strange encounters with the unknown.
All right. So this complements this clip of Charlie Raymond, who we had on last week, didn't we?
Yep. Yeah, boy, he was a good guest.
It's a really, really clean sighting, good audio, and let's just go ahead and play it.
It was in 2021. It was on my property. I have 22 acres or 20 acres of land in Kentucky here. I have one section of woods that's more of a briar for rabbits and stuff, and then I have the other section that goes across the top of my field.
Is there a way to crank it up, Jeff?
Across to where a water tower is. I told the person somebody's on my property, and I'm looking, and it was at dusk, around maybe 9 p.m. in August, whenever the sun starts setting around that time. The thing was doing this weird stride, and I had a weapon on me, but I didn't want to pull it because I didn't know if it was a trespasser or what, because it looked, it was really hairy. And I didn't know anything about Sasquatches or things like that, but in the way that it was walking with its legs, its arms would move the same as its legs, straight out. And I told the person on the phone, hey, look, you know, I'm seeing something and I'm not believing it. I don't know what the heck this thing is. You know, it's really big, it's hairy, and I was like, I don't know if it's some hairy hillbilly, you know, streaking across the property. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So I had no idea what it was. And it walked straight across the property and then up towards where the water tower was. And I was like, I'm seeing this, but I don't believe it. And I have no idea what the heck this thing is. Now that I've been talking to people and I explain what I saw, they're saying that the exact explanation that I'm giving is what they saw that was normally a Sasquatch. But the next day I got up and I walked out there where I could actually see, because there was a lot more daylight. You know, the fields were just freshly cut, and it was in the dry season, so there wasn't any footprints or any marks or tracks or anything else for me to see. I do remember, though, that I was downwind, so it was we were getting a south to northern wind, so it was coming past him, and I just smelled a strong smell that was coming from it, and I'm like, well, I was like, I wouldn't mind inviting that thing down here for a drink, but I'm like, you better take a bath first because it stinks.
Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization.
Anyhow, thanks to the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. And do you want to mention if any of you have had a sighting, can tell it pretty quick? We'd love to have you on. We can do a pre-record. You can do audio only. We can get your face. We can hide your name. We can do anything. So we'd love to hear your stories. Or if you're a member of another group and you've got footage from interviews that you do with witnesses and you have their permission, we'd love to play it. We got to get the word out on these sightings.
Yeah.
So many of them. All right, you be the judge. I think we just do one. Let's see which one I want to do. Let's do video 3, and it's on some UAP stuff. So let's judge this one and see what people think.
See, I told you. That's straight up, you guys. I told you. See, I'm not losing my mind.
Does look like a helicopter chasing an orb.
Holy moly! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
There you go. Good audio. No red flags on the audio.
Yeah,
right?
I was just kind of cringing there, waiting for.
Yeah, the F-bomb. No.
Yeah.
No, that she was really good, very wholesome. But the audio cannot be faked. I mean, that's one of the first red flags. There's music and no audio, and like, okay. But I go through a scoring system, and that one for me meets most of my criteria that I can do without having the original footage, right? Mm-hmm. And interviewing them. But just, gut level, if I had to bet $1, I'd probably go authentic on it. What say you, Jeff?
It's pretty compelling. I mean, it's obvious. I think it's something up there. I mean, it's not a camera artifact or something like that. It's definitely something in the sky. I don't know what.
No, nobody does. That's the problem. Nobody does. Yeah, it could be. It could have been just a coincidence that helicopter was a landing lights from an airplane, and the helicopter was just kind of flying in the same neighborhood.
Well, it didn't look like a spotlight. Anything else would have had like a spotlight that would have moved. It was a consistent, wide beam light. So
yeah,
it didn't look like. I mean, nothing else would have a light like that. Anything conventional would have a spotlight that's moving around.
Yeah. All right. I don't know, you guys in the comments, not one comment in chat, whether you guys think it's real or not. Go ahead and throw some in there, what you guys thought. It helps. It does. Trust me. All right. Guest. Let's get to our guest.
Yeah.
I'm going to read his bio. I don't want to get too bogged down in it because he's got a big one. Yeah. So first thing I do want, yeah. So I watched the movie, is how I heard about him. So I watched the movie. I immediately called Alex, get this guy. I'll get him booked. I really want to meet him. And, because I did a little research, and it was just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Other people, though, did know about him, and the other people in the Bigfoot world did. Sometimes things just miss me. So Dr. Robert Michael Pyle, he's a naturalist and an author of 28 books. So, impressive. Yeah, that's really impressive, including Chasing Monarchs, Where Bigfoot Walks, which is, do you want to throw that up? The Bigfoot book?
Yep.
Where Bigfoot Walks. Another book called Wintergreen, Nature Matrix, Butterflies of the Pacific Northwest, and the novel Magdalena Mountain, and 4 collections of poetry. So that's kind of a wow.
Yeah.
So apparently he was awarded Guggenheim Fellowship to the Legends of Sasquatch. And I'm a little confused on that, whether they actually knew this was going to be a Sasquatch thing or this was just documenting butterfly species. I don't know. But he's a Yale-trained ecologist. So Dr. Robert Pyle, he treks into unprotected wilderness of the Dark Divide near Mount St. Helens. And again, I've been through there. It's amazing up there, where he discovers both a giant fossil and a footprint apparently, and recent tracks. So he was kind of on the trail of what he thought was a legend. I think he left thinking it was a legend, and maybe he still does. I don't know. Be interesting to find out. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here, but the main thing I want to mention is go ahead. Also, after this interview, go watch the movie. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie a lot. It was a fun movie, beautifully filmed. It's an amazing story. Right? Yeah. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
So apparently the Dark Divide, it says here it's 76,000 acres. It seems like it would be more than that. But an intact wilderness on Juniper Ridge, linking Mount St. Helens and Mount Adams in the southern Cascade Mountains of Washington. So with that, let's bring on Robert.
All right, welcome.
Hey.
Good evening, gentlemen. Doug, Jeff, how?
Hello.
I'm honored to be here with you today.
It's great. It's great to meet you. You don't look anything like David Cross. You're much better looking.
Well, I still have a little bit of hair on top.
Yeah, you're much better looking than David.
You know, David Cross played Allen Ginsberg in a Bob Dylan movie. And he
I forgot about that.
He's done a lot of stuff. That actor, I mean,
he's a terrific actor. But he looks a lot more like Allen Ginsberg than he did me.
I remember him from Men in Black.
Yeah, he was in that. He was in a lot of people know him from what's the series he was in for a long time?
Arrested Development.
Arrested Development.
Yes.
Which he played a kind of a neurotic psychologist, I guess.
Yeah.
But
he does look a lot like Ginsberg. That's pretty cool. I forgot about that.
He's a funny man. He's a stand-up of great repute, but he's a good straight actor too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He did a good job.
Very good job.
Plus, he's really funny. I got to go out in the field with him to teach him how to handle a butterfly net and so on. And he's funny. When you first meet him, he'll kind of test you with a little joke or something. See if you take it straight. And if you just start throwing it back at him, doing the doubles, then he's cool. But he was very much fun. A really good guy.
Yeah, well, that's good. Do you stay in touch with him?
A little bit, not often. These people are busy,
No, I know. I bet you he would have come on tonight and say hi if you would have asked him. I bet you would have for 5 minutes.
He might. I don't know. I don't know if he does or not.
He would.
The other lead, the other star, was Debra Messing.
Yes, from Will and Grace.
Yeah, she was Grace and Will and Grace, and she played my late wife Tia, and she was absolutely stunning. And in real life, she's just a sweetheart, wonderful person.
Well, what in the heck was getting through your head? Because you know damn well you could have died.
Oh my gosh!
Doing this, pulling the stunt you did for science.
Well,
and I just, one, I've not read your book and I can't wait to read it.
Me too.
But the movie gave the impression that he was having second thoughts like, oh crap, what have I got myself into here? Did you ever have that?
No, because there are some differences. I'll say that. Before we go on, there's a big flag blocking about a big chunk of my lower screen.
Oh.
Can that be removed?
Yes, it can. Sorry.
Catherine Fourfeathers.
There we go. There we go.
Better. Thank you.
There we go.
Well, let me tell you first, there are some qualitative and quantitative differences between the movie and the book, as there always are, between a nonfiction book or a novel for that matter, and a narrative feature film. We'll get into those later on. I'll tell you, there's 3 big areas where the book diverges from the movie. You've touched on a couple of them already in your introductory material. But to answer your first question here, let me just say that I'm not the inexperienced person in the woods that David portrayed me as. I'm a pretty experienced woodsman from an early age. So he was quite a doofus out there, and he was going out there and putting himself in some very dangerous situations.
He kind of played the never cry wolf guy.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
That's a good movie.
Some connections. I, on the other hand, have been in the woods quite a bit. I have some reasonable woodsman skills, and I still go to dangerous places and do things that many people would consider probably foolhardy, especially because I always go solo, which I think was in your title tonight. And I mean, not always, but I like to. I don't like to talk when I'm out there. I don't like to banter, and I want to pay my full attention to the landscape and what's there.
Okay.
And not be responsible for somebody else's needs and wants. I'm going to Chile in a couple of weeks to do some research for a sequel to my novel. I'm going to be up in the Andes, and I was going to take along an interpreter and a good pal, field buddy of mine. But then they both want to bring their girlfriends, and they're madly in love. And all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of Will and Grace instead of where Bigfoot walks,
Exactly.
So I fired them all. I'm going by myself. Now, to say that, I went up there knowing quite a bit about what I was doing, where I was going. And yet I still got myself in most of the predicaments that David finds himself in. Most of those episodes are based on actual events. The almost falling over the cliff, the getting falling into rapid water, various others, getting lost in the lava beds. Now, they were, in some cases, slightly exaggerated, as film will do, or dramatized a little bit more, but they're pretty darn close. So you don't have to be stupid in the woods for things to happen.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I was taking risks, but I feel you need to take risks out there in order to come into personal contact with the wild and to have any chance of seeing, encountering anything. A lot of the Bigfoot expeditionaries, friends of mine, people I respect very much, tend to go in a pack with a lot of gear. I'm not much of a gearhead. And
But you got to answer one question,
Yes.
because it's the premise for the entire hike.
right.
What was your goal? What was your secret goal? What was your publicized goal? What were the goals? Go.
In order to do that, I have to take on your question about butterflies versus Bigfoot.
Okay.
I am a lepidopterist. Yes, a good word,
Yes.
Jeff.
I love that word.
And you pronounce it well. Am I doing well by saying the big ragu?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
The only thing is you had to pan fry those oysters and then chop them up and put them in one of your ragus. You'll love it.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And by the way, that researcher, don't you suppose that every one after she took the pipette of fluids out, that she just scooped it out? And
Probably. You
I
probably
guess
hate the
who
damn
knows?
thing.
okay, so Doug, quick history in brief. It was a Bigfoot adventure, not a butterfly adventure.
Oh, cool.
Though I can go nowhere without doing butterflies too, if they're there.
You have a dual interest.
I have a multi-interest. I'm also a birder and a mollusk.
Are you like me? You've got ADHD. You just have so many interests that you don't even sometimes know what to do at a certain point.
I'm actually not ADHD. I'm pretty calm. I'm capable of going to sleep at any given time, capable of sitting for a long time. And so I don't have that proclivity, but I do have I am like you. I can tell from your program, which I'm enjoying very much. The part running up to me, we'll see about the rest. In that I have many, many, many interests, yes. But I try to focus and indulge one at a time so that I can, do something substantial. Nonetheless, the rest of nature, which means all of it, everything, including us, of course, impinges. And so if I'm seeing a butterfly or bird, sometimes I have to work a little bit to maintain the focus. However, let me say that the movie departs from reality in three big ways. One of them I mentioned is that I'm not quite the doofus in the woods that David was. But then for a movie like that on a quest story, you take any classic quest story, whether it's Beowulf or Bill Bryson on the Appalachian Trail, whatever. The guy, the hero, the woman, Cheryl Strayed in Wild, you got to go in stupid in order to learn things. If you don't go in stupid, you don't learn anything and grow. And in a narrative, the character's got to grow. So that's why they took that to a fault. With David, made him really kind of dumb.
Yeah, well, you have to entertain people.
Plus, he's some great comics, so you got to give him room for his comic chops. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is that my wife, she dies in the movie. Now, the timeline of that was changed. My wife did have ovarian cancer, and she did die, but that was years later. She was well during the time of the movie.
Oh, okay.
But they collapsed the time frame with my permission, and I felt Tia would bless it too. I think she would have loved the movie and loved Debra.
Yeah.
In order to give it more of a narrative thrust. So it becomes a grief trip as well as a research trip. But then the third question, which is yours, butterflies or Bigfoot? Well, yes, butterflies. And yes, I did some butterfly research on the way. But in the movie, I get the Guggenheim Fellowship for studying butterflies. Now, I've had various grants for doing butterflies, but not a Guggenheim. The Guggenheim, believe it or not, gentlemen, was for Bigfoot studies explicitly.
Wow.
Really?
Now,
That's great.
there are two big reasons they changed that in the movie. They being Tom Putman, the very, very talented and marvelous filmmaker. He read the book and he optioned the movie rights for it a long time ago, but he wanted to make a documentary. And as time went on, he decided, no, this has got to be a narrative, got to be a feature film. To do that, I got to change some things. And one of his decisions was to emphasize the butterfly research instead of the Bigfoot research and let Bigfoot come into it from the side.
Yeah.
A lot more
I
subtle.
think it was a good move.
Yeah.
I think so too, for a couple of reasons. For one thing, the Bigfoot message is a lot more subtle, a lot more nuanced, still very, very powerful. And by
Well,
the
you
end
know,
of the movie,
let me interrupt. Bigfoots are that way. They are subtle. They are nuanced.
exactly, it's not Harry and the Hendersons in
Right.
the backyard. That was an entertaining movie, but that's not the way it works out there with Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It is subtle. So that was a very smart move. Second thing is, you know, there are a lot of kind of maybe entertaining, but some very questionable Bigfoot movies. The recent one about, you know, Bigfoot as Bigfoot. What was that, Bigfoot Summer or something like that?
They're
Oh,
all bad. I'm
That
sorry.
one was pretty good, but most of them are pretty bad. And so he didn't want this film, which was a serious film, to be relegated as just another silly Bigfoot movie.
Yeah.
So by shifting the emphasis, that made that strategic difference. And the third thing is, and this is important, who would believe that I got a Guggenheim Fellowship to study Bigfoot? Nobody.
Well, that's why I questioned it, because I'm like, are you serious?
This really happened.
Wow.
As it says at the
That gives me
beginning of the
hope.
movie, this really happened. And no, it really did, though. And no, Tia did not apply for it for me the way Debra does for David in the movie. I did it, but it was with Tia's help. But it was back in 1989 that I applied for that grant. And I had applied for other grants. I was in between books, Chasing Monarchs, and I want to do another real field book, you know, a real field trip in the woods book. And okay, now let me back up just a little more. I became interested in Bigfoot in about 1969, 1970. There was a lot in the air then. Of course, I'd read some of the early crypto books, but I took some wonderful Native American culture classes from Bill Holm, the great North American Indian scholar at the University of Washington. 3 classes from him: 2-dimensional art, 3-dimensional art, and dance. And in each of them, Bigfoot, Tonnequah, Bukwas, Tsedlatex, Oma, they played a very, very large role in the culture of every Indian group, from the Athabascans down to the Hoopa and everybody in between. And Bill, who was a Kwakiutl by adoption, Cherokee by birth, had been through the winter ceremonies with the Bakbakwali Nuksi way, the monster in the woods coming of age dances that they still do in remote places. And he came away with the opinion, after many years of research, that he did not know an Indian. Thank you. The movie's called The Dark Divide. Thank you, Jen. darkdividefilm.com. That's all you need to know. darkdividefilm.com. So Bill never met an Indian in the woods and the waters, not in the city, but the real woodland Native Americans who did not have a literal belief, not a spiritual belief, which they have also, like Tzitzula, the sea serpent, or thunderbird, whatever, but a literal belief like skunk, toad, and wolverine for Bigfoot. So that impressed me, but way back in the 70s. I started looking into it, reading it, and then I met Peter Byrne in 75 at his Bigfoot Information Center, became friends, brought him back to Yale, where I was studying in the forestry school at the time, to give a lecture. And after that, I said, you know, this deserves more of my time, more of my looking. So when it came time between books, and I went to apply for a Guggenheim, I said I could do it for butterflies, might or might not get it. Let's do it for Bigfoot. And
Okay, but what did you title it? How did you get them convinced to give you the money?
Well, I think I got it for the same reason the book was published and the movie was made, because of the very cool name, The Dark Divide. I mean, is that a cool name or what?
Yeah,
it's a great name.
Let me see that. You see behind me a big oil painting of Mount Rainier.
Yeah,
white
and
butterfly.
a Bigfoot.
There's a Bigfoot perched there. He's not in the painting. I perched in there just for tonight. Yeah. Well, Mount St. Helens and Mount Adams, people have heard of probably, certainly St. Helens. They're on, picture a diamond shape with Rainier at the top, the Columbia River at the bottom in the Oregon border, with St. Helens and Adams on the sides of the diamond. They form a diamond there because St. Helens and Adams, Lew-Witt and Patwa, are out of line with the Cascade Crest. So Rainier, Glacier Peak, and Baker are to the north in a line, more or less. And then in the south in a line too, down through Shasta and Lassen and so on. But those two are out of line. And in between the two of them, for about 30 miles, is this black rock, extrusive, igneous, basaltic ridge of mountain snagtooths. And that's the Dark Divide. That's named Snagtooth Mountain, Badger Mountain, Shark Mountain, great names, Jumbo Mountain, and Dark Mountain. So this area, which is the watershed divide between the Sispus River in the north and the Lewis River in the south, is called the Dark Divide. And now, never mind that that's just because it was named by this old prospector named Dark. You don't need to know that. But it became the name of that ridge, the Dark Divide. And is it not the best name ever? It could be the divide between belief and non-belief, between spirituality and mechanism and vitalism, between any two things you want to pick, belief and a hard head against everything. So that name, I took that name, and my name of my proposal for the Guggenheim was Crossing the Dark Divide, Bigfoot in American Culture, something like that. Don't remember the subtitle.
Okay.
Dark Divide was the main thing. And the point of the proposal was to look into the Bigfoot phenomenon with no bias toward fiction or non, and no agenda to prove it or not. And every other Bigfoot book and study has tried to either prove it or disprove it.
But it's the most crazy proposal ever, if you really think about it.
And it was only
nobody has ever done that.
Well, no, they had not, and they haven't since. It was only 1 page long, the proposal, and because people write, I review these Guggenheim proposals now, and they're these big, long proposals. Nobody's going to read them, and but 1 page, and I was a writer, so that helped, and I had I put everything into it. This is a very powerful presence in the Northwest and beyond. Bigfoot walks, whether or not in flesh and blood. I want to look into not whether or not it walks in flesh and blood, because you'll make up your own mind on that. But I want to look into, as a biologist, could it? Is that physiologically, evolutionarily, biogeographically possible? And B, what is the importance of it to the culture, the Native American culture, the white culture? It's a lot about the Bigfoot. I don't mean white necessarily, but I mean the Eurasian post-colonial culture, the modern culture, and the Indian culture. Let's not get worried about labels here, whatever people want to identify as. But, you know, the let's say the traditional culture and the latecomer culture, let's say that. And there's believers on both sides, and there's almost no believers among the Native Americans, and you know, a lot of the entire spectrum. So a great part of the book is about the people looking into Bigfoot. And one of the chapters is called The Natural History of the Bigfoot Hunters, and who are just as interesting as the animal, really, in a way. And I conclude that chapter that these guys don't want to find Bigfoot, they want to be Bigfoot, you know. You know, the guys, and it's almost always guys, women have relationships through the field and they research it, but different relationships. Men become obsessive and they throw their lives to Bigfoot, a lot of them onto the rocks. So that's what it was all about. Somebody at the Guggenheim panel thought, well, this is interesting. We might not embarrass ourselves with it. And they gave me the grant. And then with the grant, armed with the experience I had that enabled, and armed with that great name, The Dark Divide, I went to Houghton Mifflin and got the book contract.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
So you got the book contract. So you wrote a book.
I'm telling you, Doug, if Bigfoot walked in here right now to your studio and sat in your lap and started feeding you bonbons and reciting 17th century Italian poetry, that would not be as weird as me getting a Guggenheim to study Bigfoot. So that's why he changed it in the movie.
That's amazing. Have you met other scientists that have secretly been interested in this that just have not come forward or are studying it that you won't reveal?
I've met those kinds of people, but I've also met the significant scientists who are not afraid to come forth. I interviewed and spent time with Grover Krantz, who was the main one for a long time. Grover said, I don't believe. Belief is just like faith. I accept it based on the evidence. That was a big lesson for him. He also took a look at the first cast I ever took. He said, well, I can't say for sure. It could be it was in lithified ash near in the Indian Heaven Wilderness, actually on the Dark Divide Trek. And he said it could be a petrified Bigfoot footprint, part of it, or it could be an Indian with NBA-sized moccasins, or it could be just an erosional feature. He said the point is that you saw it. And that's what it's all about. It's about being out there and seeing it. The other main scientist now who is not at all ashamed to talk about it is Jeff Meldrum at Idaho State University. He's the legatee of Grover Krantz. He's got the collections now, the knowledge, and he has described several species of new proto-hominids, and he's described an ichnospecies, which means a fossil species of Bigfoot in the straight literature, which is probably the most significant publication yet. And there are a few scientists who are afraid to talk about it, who do have a serious interest. In other countries, that's not the case. Plenty of Chinese and Russian scientists who virtually accept the existence of Yaran, the Chinese wild man, and the Almastian, and in the Caucasus and so on.
I'm just, I'm like, how come I don't know you? Because I've done many scientific shows on the topic.
Well, you haven't read my book.
I'm like, how did I not? I just kind of weird. I think I live in a bubble.
Well, we all do, Doug. The bubble's very large, and there are a lot of people. A lot of people talk about Bigfoot. I don't expect to be known by everybody. It's a matter of chance. If you happen to know about it, by the way, the movie came out during COVID, so we lost most of our theatrical release. It was supposed to be the lead film.
Wow, I bet you that would have done good in the theaters too.
Oh, I think it would.
I agree.
In the Ashland Film Festival, and that had to be canceled. But we did get a number of live cinema showings during the time with precautions. I got to go to two of them on the big screen. One in Astoria, which is near me, Oregon, and one up in the Dark Divide in a little town called Morton. Got a restored movie theater, and they showed it there. But what it did get was a lot of drive-ins all over the country.
Oh, really?
There's still about 500 drive-ins, and it played many of them. And then, of course, it's been streaming. So it's just a toss of the dice, Doug. Don't feel bad about knowing my stuff yet.
Well, I just find it weird. I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Because it's like, why hasn't somebody said, when I'm doing a new one, by the way, you're going to be sorry you met me. Because I do really, really need your help on some things.
Well, I'm not sorry. I enjoy taking part in this. I do like a chance to plug the book. It's called, you put it up there before, it's called Where.
Yeah, throw it up again, Jeff.
Thank you. It's called Where Bigfoot Walks, Crossing the Dark Divide. This is the newest edition. It's been in 3 different editions. You don't have a picture of the back cover, do you? I'll just read it to you. Here's a great line from the back cover. When the first edition came out, Jane Goodall, yes, the Jane Goodall, asked me at a thing we were both taking part in, why didn't you have me blurb the book? And I said, well, Jane, we tried. We had the same editor at Houghton Mifflin at the time, and we couldn't reach you in Gombe. That's why. And I said, well, did you enjoy it? And she said, I loved it. But she said this, I liked this book very much, only I don't know why you were so circumspect. To me, the evidence seems overwhelming. That was Jane Goodall.
Interesting.
Well, so this is the current edition.
That's crazy.
It's brought things up to date. I've given a list of 7 things at the end that to help keep people's ping pong ball in the air. Not necessarily a belief, but of an open mind.
Yeah.
But that's what the book preaches for. Doesn't preach to accept it, doesn't preach not to.
Well,
What
that's
it preaches for is an open mind. So I got a list of 7 reasons.
perfect. Well, isn't that what
Yeah.
science is supposed to be? But it seems very prejudiced against this one topic.
Well, there's a reason for that. People are quite paranoid about that. Science doesn't care. Well, there's a reason. Scientists have to get grant money, and not very many people will give grants for this. Now, there's been a change in that a group of scientists from, thank you, Kevin, group of scientists from Oxford University went away. Yeah, Jane went away to solicit Bigfoot hair, Bigfoot poop. You would be amazed how many guys in the Northwest have Bigfoot poop in their fridges and how many of their wives have left them for it. Then all kinds of evidence, sent them to us. They took lots and lots and they gave it a serious look, DNA and everything else. And they came out at the other end and they said, not yet. We got cows, we got fox, we got nylon and rayon, we got human hair. Nothing yet, but keep it coming. So science is changing, but they are necessarily skeptical. That's part of science. The other thing is they're afraid for their own asses, of course. Grover Krantz got all kinds of hell for being out about it. However, I could add an 8th thing to my list now because I finally had a little sighting of my own. But let's save that for the climax at the end here. So anyway, the book is out. It's Counterpoint Press is the publisher in Berkeley, good publishing house, and you can get it by any of the available media. I won't mention Emma Monster, of course you can get it there, but you can also get it at bookshop.org, which I recommend because that's an organization of independent bookstores where the author actually gets his royalty. Not always the case with Emma Monster, and it supports your neighborhood bookstore. But I don't know, any way you want to get it, it's out there regularly.
Well, let's talk about. I want to hear about the adventure.
I will. I just want to urge you to both read the book and see the movie, and that way you can see how they mesh
and watch this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you want to ask me questions, Doug?
All right. So you get out there, and had you ever done a trek even close to this long?
Not that long. I did quite a bit of backpacking over my years, which are now 77. I'm not going to backpack in Chile, but I'll still hike. But starting at the age of about, my first backpack was at 19, and I backpacked a fair amount, not as much as I always thought I would, but a fair amount. And I've done some longish treks, but no, this was the longest and most complex that I've done.
What advice would you have for people like, I mean, it's dangerous going alone. I don't want to, I'm not, just don't do it. But my God, I've developed enough fear now because I kind of know what's out there.
I would be irresponsible to say go solo as I did. It's a personal choice.
Yeah.
If I'd broken a leg in certain places.
But how did you overcome your fear? Didn't you have fear? Are you superhuman?
I'm certainly not superhuman, far from it. I'm at least as much of a klutz as David portrayed, not as much of a doofus, but I'm not graceful. I'm strong, but I'm not graceful. Fear, it was more excitement than fear. There's an edge of a little bit of fear. There's no animals to be afraid of. Mountain lions, not going to attack me. Black bears, you're just careful. Yeah, there's a close encounter with a black bear in the movie, and that really happened.
No. If I go camping, I'm not afraid of bears.
No, I've been around black bears.
Coyote, nothing. I'm afraid of a Bigfoot.
Oh no,
because we don't know much about them.
We know more than we might think. And
okay,
what we know is that if this animal exists, and that's the only time I'm going to say that. Okay, I normally say that quite a bit, but I'm not going to say the if word anymore. But I'll tell you later what my exact stance is.
Okay.
But if the animal exists in flesh and blood, we know enough from Native American tales and the congruence of the most intelligent modern reports. I mean, intelligent by what I mean is the ones that seem most reliable because they're sober. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Octopus with no friends. I bet you have a lot of friends. We know enough to know they're not going to hurt us. Almost all the tales of injury are certainly confabulated. Now, the Indians do have some stories of abductions of women and children. A lot of that is the boogeyman. And I have run into Native American barricades.
I know, but my imagination goes crazy.
Fine, well then be afraid of your imagination. I'll tell you what, where I did get scared a little bit. No, it's good to let the hair rise in the back of your neck. I wanted some of that. And I did get it one night in particular when I was camped at Cultus Lake in the wilderness, Indian Heaven Wilderness, called Cultus because that's Chinook trade jargon for taboo, more or less, or scary. And it was called that because in the early 20th century, the Klickitat Indians had so much encounter with Bigfoot at that lake and in that immediate area, which is only one lake away, 1,000 yards or so from where I found that one lithified track, that they skedaddle. They considered Bigfoot in many different ways, but they considered it human, not an ape, because keep in mind, North American natives are among the few people who do not have, adrenaline rush, that's right, more than fear, who do not have a concept of monkey or ape, because there are monkeys in the old world all over and apes, and monkeys in the new world in the tropics, but not in North America.
I know, but they could drag you off if they wanted to.
So they consider Bigfoot to be people, but they say unevolved, unsophisticated, wild, crazy. They have all kinds of modifiers. They have a love-hate relationship. A lot of Indians have quite a respectful relationship and affection. But traditionally, there are a lot of stories of them stealing salmon, playing tricks on them by taking salmon, putting a stick down. Then there are abduction stories that might or might not have any water, but almost no stories of violence. And modern stories of violence, I have not heard any I give credit to. And, if a Bigfoot that gets shot takes a swipe at somebody, more power to it. But the last thing I was afraid of was Bigfoot. But sitting at the campfire at Cultus Lake, where I've had 4 or 5 strong auditory experiences, a couple of which come into the book in a big way. And I had one of them there at Cultus Lake, the track nearby, the Indian legends right there at that lake. I'm at a campfire by myself up in the Dark Divide, and there are coyotes very, very close to my campfire. And they are howling. I hear them every night here at my house, mostly. But these coyotes were very loud and very close. And I was reading Peter Byrne, and Peter's Byrne, Bigfoot monster or myth or man, myth or magic. That's the best campfire read of a Bigfoot book. And so I'm reading that, and I allowed myself to get a shiver that night. And that was fun, more fun than anything. And then guess what? At the end of that campfire, a large thing did come bumbling into my camp. And I just about peed my pants. But what it was it was a lawyer from Portland. Backpacking on the weekend in the dark, trying to find his family. Oh, where am I? Oh, where's the trail? So he just about gave me a heart attack, but it was a primate, all right. But it was a lawyer instead. So I get the place by the campfire, and in the morning showed him where his trail was. No, I was not afraid, Doug, of Bigfoot, of anything except my own clumsiness, falling, breaking a limb. That's the thing to be afraid of.
I think I'd be more afraid of a lawyer.
Where I get my fear, and it has to do with, have you had rocks thrown at you ever?
Oh, well, the end of the movie, as a matter of fact.
Well, I know that. We don't want to give that. I don't want to. I love the ending, by the way. The ending was awesome.
And it was perfect. At the end of my time in the Dark Divide, well, just a minute. Leading up to that, let me say one more disclaimer. People will be surprised otherwise. I should be straight about this. There is one more area where the book diverges substantially from the movie. And that is the movie presents it as one straight trek backpack. And it was not. Now, it was close. And that's how I planned it. That's how I originated it. And Tia was going to bring me food drops in 4 places.
Okay.
Quite a bit was cross country. I was not going to go on the Pacific Crest Trail. That's just long distance, what do they call it? Long trekking or something that they do on the Appalachian or PCT. And there's a lot of people on there. I didn't want to do that. It does go through part of the Dark Divide. I only walked a mile or 2 on it. I went on small trails, animal trails, and cross country. But what I had not counted on, and this would have been worth being afraid about, is dehydration, a very severe risk in the backcountry. Good, Steve. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. And a few days in, I was up on Juniper Ridge. I had a very heavy pack because I was carrying, more stuff than I needed, but stuff that I wanted. Certain books, certain tools, not a lot of gear. But I had a lot of water. Water's heavy. And I knew the water would be a little scarce because I was going to be up high in the autumn in the Cascades. Not a lot of flowing water up there that late in the year. Snowmelt all gone and so on. So I carried a lot of water, but I still ran out. And I thought, surely I'll find some little springs. I can go down to a spring. But it was thousands of feet down to the river. I didn't want to do that, come all the way back up again. So I was getting really low on water, and I started to actually feel the early signs of dehydration. A little confusion, a little stumbling, a little dizziness. I said, this isn't good. And that's when I went down to the Indian camp and had the encounter with the berry pickers who first pulled a rifle on me, just like in the movie, because they thought it was Bigfoot. They were scared. And but they saved me with water and so on. But here's where not digresses, but alters from the movie. At that point, I got a ride with them back to the trailhead where there was an old civilian conservation center. It's become an outdoor school. That's way down in the valley. I knew that place. I taught Bigfoot, giving Bigfoot talks for the kids there. That's where I started the hike into the wilderness. And I went back there, went to the campground, got on the phone. We didn't have cell phones. And there was the payphone there. So, no, I actually went to the center, used their phone. Called Tia, and I said, Tia, we're going to have to do plan B. There's no friggin' water up here. So Tia came and got me, took me home just for about 24 hours. I replotted the whole thing, went back, but I took my own car, my little Honda, which the car in the movie is very close to. We're going to use my same old Honda Powder Milk, which is a star in 5 of my books, but it's still running, but we couldn't get insurance for it. So they used a little Volkswagen Golf. They're very, very similar to it. But anyway, I went back up there and the rest of the trip, I did the entire distance, and I did most of it on foot, but I did it in a combination of backpacks of several days, day hikes, and then back to the car, and then around the logging trucks on the outside of the wilderness, and then back up into the wilderness. So I covered a great deal more ground, hundreds of miles more, than I would have on a straight transect. And I also got to see a lot more countryside, a lot more experiences. And in the end, the book is much richer for having done that. I don't feel it was a fake because I still walked just about the same distance in almost all of the country that it covers. It's just that I backed it up with the car and to make it possible because of water.
Well, how many nights did you camp alone in the wilderness?
Oh, over a month, every night.
Wow.
Every night. Yeah.
And
that does not distress me.
So do you want to share any of the Bigfoot experiences and how you reacted out there? Anything, any sounds you heard that you couldn't identify? Any rocks that may have been thrown, or wood knocks you may have heard, or anything weird? UFOs, God, I don't know. You're out there in the woods that long. Something's going to happen to you.
Yes, I'll give you a couple of the best.
Okay.
But let me start by saying
Perfect.
this.
Yeah. I have to say you are amazing.
Really?
Oh God, yes. You are amazing.
I'm a big fan. I agree.
I'm definitely a fan of yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am grateful, gentlemen. You're very, very sweet to me. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're amazing. Trust me.
Not
I have plans for you.
I just hope I hope this is being recorded because I want my girlfriend to see this.
Oh, it's
Absolutely.
live and
Oh, yeah.
being recorded. It'll
Thank you
be
very much.
uploaded everywhere.
I'll make myself a note. I'll send you a link so you have a link to share.
Please do. Thank you kindly for that. That's
But
great.
to tell everybody, it'll be on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple, blah blah blah, and then of course it's on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook Live, all over.
I'll get it very out there on my very limited social media.
Oh, sweet.
I'm not
Anyhow,
amazing.
so let's
let's
hear a passage.
Okay. I am not amazing. The world is amazing. The world is amazing. All of nature, including us, is amazing everywhere. There is no boring. And what one has to do is to be aware, to attend to the world and to be aware of the world. It's one reason I'm not much of a gearhead. My main piece of gear is binoculars because I don't like to have things between me and the real stuff. And so what I try to do in my writing is to convey the amazingness of the world. But if it comes across to you as me being amazing, well, that's very sweet. Thank you. This is the opening passage of the first chapter, which is called Not Looking for Bigfoot, which was, of course, the point of my grant. I'm not looking for Bigfoot. I'm looking into Bigfoot.
All right.
It was Halloween night of 1970. I was 23 years old, camping near Mount St. Helens. I couldn't sleep, and then the cries began. And I go on to talk about why I'm up there and how I'd first learned about Bigfoot from Bill Holm. And then we're camped up there in the snow, this long before the eruption. And we're near the place called Ape Canyon, where the Bigfoot posse incident occurred in 1923. And of course, I was very intrigued. And of course, we went out looking for tracks the next day. But that night, even if I was predisposed and, ready to receive it, I can't help it. I didn't make those sounds. Like Dave Barry says, I didn't make this up. These sounds came boiling out of the night. And it was cries and whistles. Now, I was studying natural history at the University of Washington with great teachers. I knew the sounds of the mammals, sounds of the birds, and so on. This was not that. But it was, when I got back home, there was a very good article on the Bigfoot state of affairs in National Wildlife Magazine. And they recounted the sounds that they'd recorded on an expedition. And the sounds were so much like I'd heard. So that's what really got me going on sounds. Now,
can you imitate what you heard a little bit? I'll bet you can.
I will in a minute for the ones I heard most recently.
Okay.
But this was a great, if you listen to the recording called Sierra Sounds.
Oh, yeah.
Virtually available. Some of the sounds are similar to some of those cries, whistles, grunts.
Yeah, okay.
But fast forward now, way past 75 when I meet Peter Byrne, on into when I got the grant, I'm doing the trek now. And I heard various possibilities for the sounds during on my trek, but you got to be aware that there's a big vocabulary of coyotes, a big vocabulary of rutting elk in the fall. Wood knocks, they happen. A lot of Indian reports. But most Bigfoot researchers, frankly, for all my affection for them and admiration, are not very astute naturalists. They don't know very many other species, and they don't know many woodpeckers. I got an email sound yesterday from a friend who said, "Is this Bigfoot?" And it was a pileated woodpecker pulling off the rotten pieces of bark from a rotting Doug fir to get the grubs. I could tell that approximately from the recording. Then several times I've had people get really, really excited and present their sounds of Bigfoot. One's in the book. It was up at Harrison Hot Springs, and it was thank you, Daryl. It was up at Harrison Hot Springs, and there was everybody was there. Renata Hinden was there. Peter Byrne, Peter Green. John Green. John Green. Grover Krantz. They were all there.
Wow.
And this kid gets up. He's a young, handsome dude. And he says, "I've just been out on the island in the lake for a few days, and I got you old duffers are sitting around here. You've been looking and looking, and hey, and you can't find it, but I found it out there. It's out in the lake, a couple of miles from here, and everybody's sitting back. Yes, yes, young man, please play us that recording. And he played the recording. He went like this. Woo-hoo, 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 woo-hoo.
Barred owl.
Barred owl. Beautiful rendition of a barred owl. I don't mean mine was beautiful. That was because it was a barred owl. They say, who cooks for you? Who cooks for y'all? Well, I got another one that way. Guy came to a reading of mine recently, and he said, I got a recording for you. Stuck around to the end. This is the real thing. Played the same thing, barred owl. So you got to be really careful with sounds. And wood knocks, the majority of what people think they hear as wood knocks are one of the 6 or 8 species of woodpeckers that are around in most parts of the country. Now, what I did hear was that I had not heard before. I had not heard described in a couple of places on Wolf Trek. In one of the main cultus lake was a sound like somebody was shaking a thin piece of corrugated iron or metal. You know, that kind of whipping metallic sound. Boy, that was a weird sound I'd never heard in nature. And I heard that in 2 or 3 places that were good candidates for habitat and a lot of lore there. Whole Dark Divide is rich in Bigfoot lore going way back. And so that could be associated with them. I don't know for sure. But then I did hear in 2 or 3 places a very faint whistle that was unlike any of the night birds. And I thought, now that's impressive. I don't know. And I've been out with the spotted owl researchers. I know they're very large vocabulary, especially the females in winter. Oh boy, they can make some remarkable, spooky, ghost and whistly sounds.
What about whoops? Have you ever heard a whoop? Because, you know, it sounds so natural, like a bird would have made it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
all the research I've done, I cannot find any animal that does a whoop.
Whoops. Now, I think the whoops, see, that's a good point you make, Doug. That's why you're the Monster Quest producer. You know stuff. And that whoop, I think, may well be the real deal. I can't say for sure, of course, that some other animal doesn't make a whoop like that. But yes, I've heard the whoop a little bit in the distance. But my main auditory experience since the 1971s at St. Helens was also very close to St. Helens, probably not 15 miles as the butterfly flies from the timberline meadows at the top of Mount St. Helens, which don't exist anymore. Not the top, but at the base of the snow cone. Used to be a snow cone. And at the base of that, an area called Timberline, that's as high as the road went. A lot of people went up there with snowmobiles and skis. And that was just around the crest of the mountain from Ape Canyon and the Plains of Abraham. And if you cross the Plains of Abraham, you'd come to Ape Canyon. And that's where the 23 Bigfoot posse event occurred. Well, I was only about 15 miles from that on this night in 1990, October of 1990. And it was my last night in the Dark Divide. I'd been all the way down the mountain, all the adventures, getting lost in the lava tubes, almost falling over the cliff, falling in.
What in the hell were you doing in the lava tubes? I've been in those things.
Well, it's the most dangerous place. I think it's the most dangerous place
really
I've ever been in.
Well, I'm glad to hear that now.
People, there are unexplained lost people never came out of there.
Oh.
And that's where I was scared. And I went extremely carefully. I was going to cross the entire lava bed about 10 miles, no, about 5 miles across, about 10 miles long.
Yeah.
And it starts up at the bottom of the Indian Heaven Wilderness, where, by the way, that's right, there's a lake called Goose Lake, and in the shallow water at one end, depending on snowmelt, there is a famous, I have not heard, I've heard of the ape cat, but not researched it, thank you. There is a famous Indian handprint preserved in the lithified Mount St. Helens ash, not the lava. Person didn't put his or her hand in or their hand in hot lava, but in ash, and that later became stone, like the one I found at Deep Lake. Anyway, that's a famous thing. Well, just south of there begins this quite recent eruptive exposure called the lava beds, and it's still lava at the surface. It hasn't vegetated over except for sparse, shaggy lodgepole pines, and then a lot of ferns and lower vegetation. But a great deal of the rock is still exposed. But there's enough vegetation, it's easy to miss the holes, and some of the holes go way down.
Wow.
There's burned out tree casts and root casts, and there are people who have crawled many feet underground in those root casts. And then there are lava tubes where the lava flowed over a ravine and solidified.
Did you find the dust irritating? All the
There wasn't any dust. There's no more ash. That's all gone.
it's gone. Oh,
Oh, in the early days of the eruption, yes. Oh, yeah, and I've been in loose ash in the Mount St. Helens blast zone where it's still ashy.
yeah. I've camped there, and
Then it can be, but boy, right after the eruption, even right here in my house, and I'm 100 miles west of Mount St. Helens, where I live right now, coast to coast. Even here, the a good point about a whoop. The cows were gray on the morning of the eruption. That's how I knew it. Something happened because all the cows were gray. Everything was gray from the dust yet. But now back to the lava bed. Excuse me. No dust there. It's just all hard, sharp lava. And if you fall, you could so easily break an ankle. So easily. It'd be very hard to get out of there. So you go in there, and I decided after probably a quarter mile, I am not crossing this safely. I'm not that dumb. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. So I made several penetrations to get in there, and had some good experiences. One of compasses really don't work in there.
really, I never thought about that.
I read that, and I tested it, and it's true. I did get lost. My compass didn't work. That's another important piece of gear I do use, is a real regulation compass. And it didn't work in there because it's highly magnetized in places. But I did not know if I was coming out of there. Now, that scene in the movie, the climax really, where David's down in the lava tube,
Yeah.
and he gets lost in there, and there's a howls and growls, and stuff happens, and it's very, very wild, almost psychedelic, almost surreal. That extrapolates on my experience. I will say that. But I did get lost in a pretty big lava hole for some little while.
How long?
In the hole for, probably not more than about 20 minutes. But in the lava cave, in the lava area around it, for half a day.
Oh, geez, that would be scary.
Yeah, and the dark was coming on. No, I would have survived the night. It wasn't that cold. And I had, an extra garment with me, a little bit of food.
Yeah, you weren't in your underwear like in the movie.
That's a really funny thing about the movie. I'll get back to my sounds in a minute. But that's a really funny thing about the movie. The movie, by the way, if we haven't said so yet, is frogging hilarious in places. David is a world-class comic, and he brings it out. And the script is smart. In the end, he was one of the script writers as well, and producers. David was. So it's brilliant. It's a brilliant script. It's subtle. It's not slapstick, but it's very, very funny. Some of the exchanges between people are hilarious. And the cast is wonderful. There are several Native Americans in the cast whom I got to hang out with a lot. And that was a lot of fun.
Well, there was somebody here that said they knew somebody that was on set with you, and they said that you were awesome on
That's
set.
probably Harvest Moon. She is a legendary and famous Quinault Indian storyteller. She's going to England soon to a Bigfoot conference that this 15-year-old kid over there is putting on because she's so well known. And she was the grandmother in my Indian encounter in the movies. There's a great campfire scene that took all night long to film.
No, it was Heather G. So shout out to Heather G. She said you were super cool on set.
Oh, Heather, did you work in costumes?
No, they're shouting out to Heather.
Oh,
So
shout out to Heather.
I don't know what's going on. I'm
Heather
confused
said
too.
it was
They just said you were.
I don't think Heather's in chat.
This is not Heather. This is SoCal Squatch.
Yeah, they were just saying
remember
you
Heather.
were awesome.
Thank you. Heather, tell Heather thank you for me. Tell her I love her. She's sweet. She worked in costumes.
Oh, there it is. Her name is Heather. She did makeup and DX.
Makeup and DX, that's right. She was very good, and she and her partner were such fun. Hung out with them for a while. So anyway, David's experience in the lava tube was extrapolated. It was made into a little work of art in itself. But the whole cast is wonderful. The Native American, that Native American campfire scene. We were talking about
Great scene.
Harvest Moon. But sadly, most of her speaking role gets cut out for time. And if you buy the DVD, if you can still watch DVDs, you get a second disc, which has the outtakes, including Harvest Moon telling Quinault, real life Quinault traditional Bigfoot stories for some time. And she did it in several of the takes we did up there. And it was so funny because everybody was spellbound, the entire cast watching her at the campfire, telling these stories. And finally she stops and she says, I could do this all night, and everybody cracked up. Sadly, none of that made it in. But that cast was wonderful. And the movie is really, really funny. So the underpants. How come I'm in underpants in about half the scenes? I don't know. I do have a scene in the book where I go totally nude on the Dark Divide Trail. By the way, there's a trail that runs the entire length of the Dark Divide, primitive trail. Torn up a little bit in places by motorbikes. So that's one reason I wanted to become a wilderness area. I'm not against trail riding in the mountains by any means. My brother does a lot. And there's a lot of trails.
Yeah. So the whole area is unprotected, basically.
That's the thing. There's a lot of trails and dirt bike roads and log roads in the whole Gifford Pinchot National Forest. A lot of places that are good trail bike riding. But that particular trail is not a good one because the soils are very thin and they tear it up. And that's not a good thing. That's one reason I want it to be. Responsible riders just don't go in those parts. But that's why I want to be a wilderness area. That's one reason. And also to make sure that no more logging in there. It might not be soon.
Is that supposed to represent the little store in Cougar when you guys were at that gas station?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's supposed to represent that great little store in Cougar.
Yeah, in Cougar.
Yeah.
I remember I had to interview some people for a TV show. So I went into Cougar, mentioned it to the clerk that I wanted to interview some people that have seen Bigfoot. I swear to God, the whole town turned out.
Yeah.
And I interviewed, we had 3 crews interviewing witnesses that were in lines. And here's what's funny. Every person I interviewed, I said, have you ever seen a cougar? No. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? Yes, 2 of them.
Well, you're absolutely right. Those little towns, I had another experience recently up near Titan Lake, a little lodge, big Bigfoot chainsaw sculpture outside. You go in, I say, any action lately on Bigfoot? And she says, every day, But I'll come back to that because that was near my own sighting. But back to the underpants, to finish that off, I did go there. The old Indian trail called the Boundary Trail number 1, ancient trading trail. Number 1 trail in Gifford Pinchot runs the length of the Dark Divide from Adams to St. Helens. And I hiked that. And that was one of my longer hikes that went crossways to the run. So I did go out there in the nude one night, moonlit night, just to experience. And one other time in the nude in a lake near Quartz Creek in the old growth, in order to experience what big hairy ape, of which I was one, what it would be like to be completely unequipped. Yeah. And in the book, I describe all the gear I carried versus nothing. And I say, I was out there. I fell into the cold water. How long would I have lasted without having warm clothes to come back to? Overnight in the late fall at this elevation? Maybe, maybe not. But all that stuff I've got, all this stuff Bigfoot doesn't have, which one is the superior ape? Is a question that I asked. But I wanted to experience what that was like. There's a guy named Monty West. He was a crazy hippie anthropology teacher at the UW in the 70s, and he did that. I write about it in the book. He went into the Gifford Pinchot 1 month on his own, stark naked. And he came out the last day absolutely emaciated, flagged down the first pickup that came along, picked him up, never said a word about the fact he was naked and scarred and bleeding and skinny. He just said, "Please take me back to the trailhead." And he did. He was an anthropologist. He wanted to experience the state of mind of an Aboriginal person totally unequipped in the wild. He almost got himself killed. I wanted to experience that briefly. Just what's it like being ape with none of this Gore-Tex and Vibram soles and all this stuff, And so maybe that's why David decided to make me in my underpants in so many scenes. I don't know. It's kind of silly. But when you look at the credits on the movie, by the way, watch the credits all the way through, because at the end, there's a really nice picture of myself and Tia. But you have to watch the credits first, which are not long. And in the credits, there's a thank you to Fruit of the Loom.
Most people that have a movie made about their life generally are disappointed, bitter about it. You are the opposite. You just seem like you're just cool.
I'm so frogging lucky in that regard to have had a brilliant filmmaker, a stunning cast, great script writers, which is basically Tom, the director, and David, and really good material. I think my book was a good piece of material for a movie. I do.
It was
a challenging one, of course, being nonfiction.
Would you do it? Would you do this again?
Oh yeah, I will.
That was a quick answer.
I'm trying to get Tom to become interested in making a movie of my novel. I have written a novel, and it's a bit of a thriller in places and a lot of natural history in it, as you can imagine. It takes place in the Colorado high country. It's called Magdalena Mountain. I want to push that too. It is published by the same company, the same publisher in Berkeley called Counterpoint Press. It concerns people, but instead of a Bigfoot figure, a big part of the plot is driven by a completely black butterfly called the Magdalena alpine, a real butterfly that I studied and fell in love with as a kid.
What's the scientific name of that butterfly?
Oh, a wonderful name. Thanks for asking. Eurybia magdalena.
Jeff, can you remember that?
So there's a whole word mystery, Magdalena, like Mary Magdalene. And there's a whole word mystery all through the book about how it got its name, and the mountain becomes Magdalena Mountain, and so on. It's a fun book to read. I will tell you that. I'm trying to get Tom to make a movie out of that. So anyway, I would do it again. And several friends of mine, very good novelists.
Are you planning to do a trip? I should have asked that.
Do a trip?
Are you planning to do a new trip, another hike through the
not
divide?
Dad. Hey, I'm a really old guy, 77.
You don't act like it.
I've got a pacemaker.
You have a lot of energy, man.
I have a lot of energy. A pacemaker fixed up my heart. I just got a new hip 2 months ago.
Well, you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go to Chile. I'm going up to the Andes in 2 weeks, but I'm not going to hike like that. I still go. One reason I got the hip and the pacemaker is because I'm not ready to give up on being out in the wilderness. But I can't hike like that anymore. I'll do more books, more trips, but not like that. But I do have two very good friends, really good novelists, who were horrified by what became of their books in movies. And Ken Kesey didn't. Oh, thank you. Oh, Kevin.
Did you go to Todd Neese's Beachfoot?
Yes, I've been to 2 or 3 of them.
Really?
And I just signed up today for the next one. Kevin, I hope you'll be at the one in Wilkinson. I'll be there. I'll bring the harmonica.
I just got my invite.
Yeah,
Jeff, I just sent you that.
Well, I didn't get to the last one because it's quite a ways down the coast.
Yeah.
But this next one is about 30 miles from my house. So I just wrote Todd last night and said, I'll be there, man. I'd like to give a little talk on the making of the movie if he wants to hear it. But these two friends of mine were horrified by what became of their movies in the cinema. They say, friends don't let friends watch this movie. Ken Kesey didn't even like what they did with Sometimes a Great Notion, which I think is a fabulous movie. So I'm so lucky. I really like the movie. Now, my family and my friends, some of them get a little upset because David isn't exactly me. They said, but you're not dumb in the woods like that. I said, I know. But you know that. I know that. Anybody who knows me knows that. Anybody who doesn't know me doesn't care. And if they read the book, they'll find out. So I go along with it. And I laugh. I laugh at myself along with it. And I love the movie, frankly.
So
great.
Jeff, can you get Robert back on track on talking about Bigfoot? Jeff, if you can, I
Let's go
can't.
to the end. Let's go to the end. Let's go to the end and the sounds, because where we were trying to get to was the really important real sounds that you want me to emulate, and that's what really made the climax for the book. I went all the way across the Dark Divide, had a lot of adventures, wrote about it all, got to Carson, went to the Carson Hot Springs down by the river, which was my reward for finishing, but I had to be back in Olympia the next day because I was on a wildland conservation commission that I really cared about. It's the last committee I ever really cared about. And I had to be at that meeting. We had a chance to save some land. But that was 100 miles away. And I just could not face I-5, the freeway, after being in the wilderness for a solid month.
That's a bad freeway.
No, couldn't do it. And so I said, if I spend all night and I don't worry about sleeping, I can go back across the Dark Divide all the way up to Randall, which is near Packwood, and at the north end of the Dark Divide. I'll go on little roads and Forest Road 25, that's the entry to St. Helens on the east. It's all unpaved, almost all unpaved. And I'll cross the Dark Divide one last time. Only 3 places you can cross the Dark Divide on roads. Only 3, and one by Baby Shoe Pass by Mount Adams, one little logging road in the middle that I think is washed out since, and now Forest Road 25 at Elk Pass. So I went and I stopped at Elk Pass, went into the Boundary Trail parking lot to get out and take a pee and have a beer. Just one beer. It's important to note. To toast.
Oh my God.
To toast my trek.
Well, there was a tiny bit of cheating there. That was a little bit.
What, to have a beer?
Yeah, to have a beer.
I don't think so.
No.
When having a beer.
Go to a parking lot and have a beer. That's
a little tiny parking lot at the trailhead. I bought a beer at Carson. I had a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada. But, just like in the movie, I run into those dirt bikers at the bottom and they give me a beer. So that's appropriate too. So I have this beer to toast the end of the trek.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting back in the car and I start hearing the beer was, thank you, Flat Rockland. The beer was a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Good stuff.
And I preferred their winter beer, their Celebration, but Pale is still good. So I get back in the car and I start hearing this whistle. So,
Did you whistle back?
Give me a minute. I said, effing A, what is that? Because it wasn't a bird that I knew, or anything. And there's this whistle coming down. Now picture it, I'm up in this little parking area. Then there's a slope that goes over, and a rising slope with an entry to a quarry behind it, an old abandoned quarry. And so I get in the car, I take the brake up, then I'm coasting down the road. Don't turn the engine on. It's downhill a little bit. I'm coasting down, tapping my brakes, so the brake light went on and off. Otherwise, I didn't make any noise or light. And I get right under the slope that the whistle's coming from. And the whistle moves across the slope, just uphill from me. It's low alder brush. It's not big noble fir. To the right of me is old growth noble fir, big tall forest, a little ways away. But the road is clear from that, and these alders are not overhanging. So the road is clear. And there was just a light rain, and it's cloudy, and this slope coming down, and this whistle. It's a rising whistle, a deep, sonorous one, kind of like a whoop, whoop,
whoa,
whoop. almost call it a very high-pitched whoop.
Wow,
You
that's
could almost
cool.
call it a high-pitched whoop, but it varied a little bit.
Sounds very ape-like.
It wasn't anything like the vocabularies of any of the owls, and certainly not elk or certainly not coyote. So, but it's moving across the slope. As I'm coming down, it's coming this way. And then we stopped. It stopped, and I stopped. And I kept my foot on the brake, I realized. So my brake light was on. It was pretty dark, dark of the night. No moon, no stars. I can just about make out the outline of the alders, but there's really no incident light. And the whistle continues, and then I whistle back. I go, whoop, whoop, and it whistles back. We had this little conversation going for a little while, a little bit of variation. And then I'm just about to set my handbrake and get out with my flashlight. And at that point, bam, something strikes the top of my car. Now, I told you I wasn't scared out there, Doug, but if a old Honda can burn rubber on a wet dirt mountain road, I did it. And I split. I did not pee my pants, but I did get the hell out of there.
So do you think you were being chased out?
No, well, I don't know. I'm not quite finished yet. So
okay, keep
a
going.
couple 100 yards, and I said, "Idiot, fool. It's not going to hurt you. Go on back." Yes, I went on back, and I got out, and I couldn't get up into the alders. It was thick, steep. I looked around, could see nothing, and I just kicked myself for not immediately jumping out with the flashlight, possibly catching a sight of something. I don't know. There are lots of stories. Yeah, I set a land speed record. Robert. By the way, I've driven that car 500,000 miles on these treks.
Wow.
Still on the road. Anyway, there were a lot of stories of Bigfoot hurling things. It does. It was almost like a high-pitched whoop. So there are lots of stories of hurling concretions, round concretions, geodes that haven't been split into at deer. I know one Bigfoot researcher calls them Bigfoot bullets. Don't know, but there's stories of lots of Indian stories of that too. Lots of stories of them hurling things. But there are also stories of, and I know it happens, of both barred owls, which did not occur in those mountains at that time, and spotted owls flying down and striking people. This happens repeatedly on Bigfoot research teams. There's one senator that went to see the old growth he's supposed to save, and he wanted to see what this spotted owl was all about. And the researcher took him in there, and the spotted owl flew down, hit him, and knocked him over. While he was not braced very well, he broke his ankle. So, I mean, these owls do strike people. In the movie, there's a scene where an owl lands on my head. Didn't actually land on my head, but I did have spotted owls fly at me when I was out with the research team. So, and then the Bigfoot females in winter do make a huge variety of sounds. So there's this slight possibility that I was projecting, and that this was a female spotted owl, and that's what struck the car. If only.
Sure.
I had not gone back in 3 days with my wife, Tia, who, remember, was still alive for years to come in the real life version. And she was off looking in the old growth forest. She was a botanist. Not very interested in Bigfoot. Pretty darn skeptical, both of us with a science background. But I went up there and I looked around my slope as much as I could in the alders, but there was just thick vegetation under them. But on the uphill side of that slope was the entrance to this old rock pit that they dug out when they were building that road, a long time ago, abandoned. And at the edge of that, a game trail coming down from the mountain that goes up toward Mount St. Helens. And the boundary trail runs from that parking lot up there toward Mount St. Helens too. So this game trail is paralleling the boundary trail, the hiking trail, which is pretty primitive itself. And it's coming down, and it comes down and it joins that little quarry road just before the small forest road 25. And so I walk up the game trail, and what do I see but a set of tracks, 3 or 4 of them on the game trail proper, and they are coming off of the slope to its right, which runs down to the alder grove. The slope is about a 45-degree slope, tapering out to the bottom. And there are 4-foot step, means an 8-foot stride, steps coming out of the alder grove up that slope. Now, they were not distinct because the slope was Mount St. Helens expelled ash, which by this time it was really, I'm sorry, what's the other word? Not tough. Tufa. Well, it's ash, but it's a little more granular than the ash. There's a word for it. The grade between ash and tough.
Pumice.
Pumice, thank you. Thank you so much. Flat rockland should know pumice. And it is. It's very loose pumice. And so that didn't take a track very well. But it took the impressions. I mean, the impressions were there, and they were big, and bigger than usual because it spreads out. And there are 4-foot intervals coming up. The last one is almost distinct because it's getting into the soil. And the very first one, down at the base where it goes into the alder, there was soil there and moss, and that made an impression in the moss and soil. Not deep enough to take a cast, but much more distinct. So a fairly distinct one at the bottom, a little more distinct at the top, but then the 3 or 4 tracks on the game trail were increasingly distinct. And a lot of rhyolite up there. And the last one, they're the ones I have pictures of in the book. I don't know if it'll show up much here, if I can find it quickly. But I do have photos of those tracks. Here they are. Here's 2 of the best ones. They're not going to show very well on here. But the one on top was the best one. And you can see the foot shape. You can see the big toe well. And the run down to the small toes. That dark impression on the top is a shadow of some pumice that came up with when the foot was lifted.
It's pretty deep.
It was fairly deep. It was about 1.5 inches deep, but it was way too soft to take a cast. It would not accept the plaster without destroying it and just pushing it out. So I wasn't able to get a cast. However, fast forwarding. Okay, so that was that. Those tracks were there, and I was shivering all over, and I'd never found tracks before, and I was kind of a mess. I brought Tia over, and she said, "Oh, it's just a bunch of elk tracks running together." Well, above those were elk tracks, and it was elk tracks all the way up after that. But these were not elk tracks. These 4 tracks were semi-distinct, as you saw in the photograph. Grover Krantz was duly impressed by them. Okay, really? So then I go down to the road. Okay, that's the tracks. What about this thing that hit the top of my car? And the only thing lying there in the road is a stick, a big stick, small part of a branch from a wild cherry tree. There were cherries in that stand too. We don't need to hear that right now. That's terrible. And,
some breaking news. Apparently there was a crash of a regional jet into the Potomac River.
Well, mercy to them all. Well, you know how Bigfoot's supposed to twist branches, not crack them.
Have you seen that?
Yes. This cherry branch section, lying right by where I had parked that night, was twisted at both ends, distinctly twisted. So I asked Tia to stand back a ways and throw it at the top of the car, and it made the satisfying sound that I had heard that night. So that means nothing. It doesn't prove anything, of course.
No.
That could be circumstantial too. But you put that together with the sound,
Yeah.
the strike, the stick, and the putative tracks, and it makes at least as strong a story.
A hell of a correlation there.
A correlation at least as strong as the alternative hypothesis of the female owl speaking outside her usual vocabulary and striking the car.
Yeah.
Now, I'll simply say, and I'll finish this long bit, that choke cherry. It's a choke cherry. It's a species of wild prunus that grows in the forest there. So at the end of the movie, I don't want to do a spoiler, but the end scene, which is absolutely perfect, I think, for the movie, and has the perfect music. And I will say that a good friend of mine here lives just one ridge away from me here is Chris Novoselic, who was the co-founder of Nirvana and the bassist for Nirvana.
Bass player, yeah.
He's just about to do a Nirvana reunion concert in LA for LA Fire Relief with Dave Grohl and Pat Smear and several women doing the Kurt Cobain parts. But he's a buddy of mine. We protected together a big piece of land right next to his compound over on Deep River. Well, he has some local bands too. And one of them is called Giants in the Trees. And they've got a song called Sasquatch Song. It's absolutely wonderful. And Dave, I'm not in Grays Harbor. I'm in Grays River. Grays Harbor is about 100 miles north of here. That's where Kurt and Chris came from, of course. Yeah, I share that blessing. Well, anyway, Tom really wanted to use that Sasquatch song of Chris for the movie, partly because it's a great song, and partly to have Chris' name in the credits, Well, they didn't use that, but they did use the very final music. Oh, and by the way, let me say, the music for this movie is absolutely phenomenal.
It is good. Yeah.
By the Avett
I'll
brothers.
concur. As a producer, I liked it.
It's wonderful. Most of it by the Avett brothers, who are a wonderful group, and then some Native American musicians. But the music they use at the end is one of Chris' songs, but it's an instrumental that Giants in the Trees did called Pacific Anarchy, Invitation to Pacific Anarchy, something like that. Perfect song. But you remember, gentlemen, you've seen the movie, and some of our watchers will have seen the movie too. There's something that happens at the end of that movie, the very, very last action. And it is, except for shifting it down the road a little ways and making it a rock instead of a stick, it is perfectly represented. The end.
So, what do you think the best evidence in your mind as a scientist for Bigfoot, for its existence? Do you think it's the sightings, the oral tradition, the natives, the footprints? What in the footage from 1967 or 67? What is it? What gets you going?
All the above. My list of 7. I'm not going to read the text from them. I'll just read you the list, and you'll see that you pretty much covered it. These are the 7 things that keep my ping pong ball of an open mind in the air. More or less in order of importance, but not necessarily. They could be shuffled.
Okay.
Number 1.
I agree.
The Pyle-Its at the bookstore. When I did my first reading of this book in public on publication day in 1995, my Cinderella day, I had a handler that day, and not a limo, but a car, fancy dinner, everything, hotel. Well, about 20 Quileute Indians from La Push, which later became, of course, the habitat of vampires and werewolves in the Twilight Saga. But before then, there were real monsters there. There were Bigfoot there forever. And those Quileutes came to my reading to see whether I had treated the subject with respect. Of course, I was quaking in my boots. And after they heard my reading, the spokesperson stood and he said, "We feel you have treated it with respect. We thank you. We don't want you people to all come to our reservation to see or hear this, but we're with them every day. And we think that the whites are essentially kind of dumb to even raise the question of their existence. May we play a tape?" And he whipped out a cassette tape the bookstore owner whipped out a boom box. They played the tape, and by God, I was hearing the sounds I heard on Mount St. Helens that night and the whistles from that last night in the Dark Divide. I heard an array of the sounds, and I said, okay, bros, this is some confirmation. That's my number one, the Indians at the bookstore. Number two, Jane Goodall speaks, and that's that quote on the back of the book.
Yeah.
Jane Goodall, for whom I have immense respect. I know her. She calls me Butterfly. If she has that kind of respect for the evidence to say to her, the evidence is overwhelming, that means a great deal to me. Number three, and this is it's not in order of importance because I haven't gotten to one thing I think is the most important maybe, was the Bigfoot butt print. I don't know if anybody is...
the Skookum. Skookum cast. I'm looking at it right here.
That's got on his wall. Yeah.
The BFRO people came up with. I don't know if it's been significantly refuted or not.
No, it has not. I personally was involved in the whole thing, and we
damn impressive.
to try to debunk it. Robert, we got elk legs and knees and everything everybody came up with,
but you got the different body parts, the different impressions. The physics seem right.
Eye, forearm, wrist, hand, buttocks, butt, heels, and Achilles tendon.
I think it's very important. Number 4 is Jeff Meldrum's ichnospecies. Most people don't know what an ichnospecies is, but it is something that paleontologists do that's outside the International Commission for Zoological Nomenclature. So it doesn't stand for a species description. Bigfoot was named by Grover Krantz, Gigantopithecus canadensis, and other people have given it a scientific name, but they don't stand because they don't have what's called a type specimen, DNA or a bone or fur or whatever. But in paleontology, you can name a new dinosaur, a new plant, a new whatever, on the basis of an impression or a track or other evidence besides a fossil. It's called an ichnospecies.
Yeah, could that be done from one track, Robert?
I don't know about that, but Jeff did it on the basis of his whole body of hundreds of tracks and measurements. What are our fingerprints called?
Dermal ridges.
Dermal ridges. Know that he used all of that.
Latent evidence.
He made that collective body of evidence to name the ichnospecies, and what he named it was Anthropoidopes ameriborealis. Anthropoidopes ameriborealis, which means a foot like a human that lives in North America. That's what that means. Now, that would not work as a species name in zoology. That's a different line of science, and you have to have a bone or some DNA for that. Okay, that was number 4. Number 5, the emergence of Robert Gimlin. After so many years, he came out of he was underground.
I was actually had the joy and pleasure of being with Bob at his side when he finally came out of hiding and met with all his fans, and it was so amazing to watch people just swarm him to get his autograph, and he was like, what? I thought everybody hated me.
People got over that or died.
Oh,
now they've died.
He's a hero, man.
All the adversaries have died now. So nobody has to be those old rivalries and hatreds that ran through the Bigfoot community was extremely off-putting, and I talked about that in my chapter on them.
Yeah, it was. But while we're on you mentioned Gimlin. What are your just quick logline thoughts on the Patterson-Gimlin footage?
Well, I'm coming to that.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to mention the emergence of Robert Gimlin first.
Okay.
Because he could come out of hiding and be nice, and he's handsome. He's got his Fu Manchu mustache still, and he still rides a horse, and he's a cowboy guy, and he's utterly charming. And he could still be lying. It's not his existence that I have him on this list for. It's the fact that spent time with him both in Natchez at the gathering, the first one he went to when he came out, and at Beachfoot. And he and Peter Byrne and I sat down for a good long while together. Very nice picture. I should have actually, if you go to that Beachfoot invitation you just got,
Yeah.
a bunch of names of people that have been there. He left me out. He left some other people out who were big parts, but that doesn't matter. But he's got our picture at the end. Right at almost the end of the invitation, there's the picture of myself, Peter Byrne, and Bob Gimlin. And Bob and I sat down at that campfire for quite a long while. And I concluded in talking with him, and again the next morning over pancakes, that he was incapable of lying and of faking it.
Hallelujah.
I said, hearing his unaffected voice and watching his bright writer's eyes, I cannot believe that he was lying. He could no more have taken part in faking the famous film, even if anyone could figure out how it could have been faked, which they can't, than to mistreat his horse, which he could not do. So he convinced me that way. And then the next one is 6 is further analyses of the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Okay.
I was on Peter Byrne's Bigfoot Research Project board for a while, and we had access. They got a big grant, and they had major analysis done of the second generation copy of the film. Of course, the first generation is missing. The second generation, and it's much clearer than most of what we see. But they had that not enhanced in any way. No data were added, but all the data there by the tools of the time were examined and interpolated in the best possible way. And according to the research at the time, and according to the technology of the time of the filming, it's extraordinarily difficult to believe that that could have been faked, which many people before me have concluded as well. So I think the Patterson-Gimlin film, parsimony.
Okay, but what part of the film, excuse me, gets you excited when you watch it?
Glad you asked, because I got to watch a projection of the second generation. And what you can see that you can't see on the fuzzy 5th and 6th that most of us see is the color on the bottom of the heel and the foot, the heft of the breast, the rippling of muscles, the gluteus maximus, and also the large thigh muscles. You see the flexion in those. You see the flexion of the muscles.
Yep.
That was extraordinarily impressive to me, as well as the musculature, the turn of the head, the angularity of the turn of the head. There's nothing, to my mind, human about that movement, as well as the measurements of the limb.
But Robert, why is it that you're one of the handful of scientists that have looked at that film and been impressed? Where I've talked to somebody, it looks like a dude in they even say a bad suit. I love it when they say it looks like a dude in a bad suit. And I'm thinking,
cheap fursuit.
What? Yeah, cheap suit. And I'm thinking,
there's no way.
How do you, don't you see the muscles? And they're like, no, I don't see any muscle. I'm like, what?
Well, it reflects poorly on these people. And I feel sad for them because they call themselves scientists, many of them, or careful observers, or professional skeptics, or whatever they call themselves. But Patty is still the champ. And you look at Patty and you see these things. But I have to say, I was honored to have the second generation thing to see on a big screen. And you see it better. Now, a lot of people see a poor rendition, and those details are not as visible, if they're visible at all.
Well, we have now.
But the main thing, Doug, is they're predisposed to call it bull. They want to call it bull because they cannot accept the possibility of it.
Right.
They can't accept it. They can't accept the possibility of it. And that ain't science, my man.
No.
Science is accepting the possibility of all things. But it's also applying parsimony. And here's where a lot of the Bigfoot people, Bigfoot researchers and interested people fall down. And I have to say, I'm not entertaining in this talk the woo at all. I'm not a person who entertains the woo. I'm a rationalist. I'm a mechanist. People call my writing spiritual, but if it is, I don't distinguish between the spiritual and the physical. I just don't. To me, everything is sacred or nothing is sacred, and I don't give a hoot which it is.
Right.
I'm not an atheist. I'm an all-theist. Everything's sacred or not. It's okay. It's all there, and it's all nature, and it all is. Nature is just a synonym for is, and Bigfoot's part of it. And it's not parsimonious. The Bigfoot, I'm sorry, appears as orbs. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm wrong. What do I know? But the orbs I've seen that people have showed me, I say, were those in focus? Oh, no, you can't do it in focus. You got to take it out of focus. Those were frogging mosquitoes in front of his camera in the firelight, or something else. That's my view. And it's my view that Bigfoot, in spite of some people who have brought them together a lot, Bigfoot and UFOs, I think they probably both exist, but I don't think they have a whole lot to do with each other because it's not parsimonious. Parsimony is the very body of science, and it means Occam's razor. It means the simplest explanation for things. And an awful lot of people want to bring the most complicated explanation. And that's why those things usually don't work very well, with a lot of conspiracies, a lot of odd stuff. There's plenty of odd stuff that is really there and really odd. But when you get down to the bottom, if there's an explanation, it's going to have the fewest possible working parts. And that's what these so-called scientists who dismiss it out of hand do not bring. They do not bring their parsimony. They bring their predisposed opinion that these things cannot exist. And that's why they don't see it. Now, if anything I've said have offended some of the viewers, just understand, what do I know? Just my opinion. I will not tell you what to believe in the orbs, the shape shifting, the dimension shifting, all of that. Telepathy could be absolutely right electromagnetically, but I want things to observe the laws of physics and to observe parsimony.
Well, don't you agree they may possess some super abilities? Great strength is a super ability.
No, it's not.
It's not?
Does an octopus have super ability?
They do.
No, they got great strength.
Octopuses, they have super ability. Well, in my brain, they do.
Yeah, well, it's super, but it's not super.
I don't mean supernatural.
Okay.
I just mean.
Let's make that distinction then.
I just mean like an electric eel can make electricity.
Oh, that's right.
That's a super ability.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
And you know what? Every probable single organism in how it's adapted to its environment has super abilities. I don't think there are any.
Absolutely. We all do. Every animal does.
Yeah. So we could just call it abilities,
but they're many oftentimes different from each other.
Way beyond ours. That's why I said, and I use your same word, Doug. Totally agree, because when I did that, naked in the river, naked in the creek, and naked in the cascade, is this cold cascade, and the all my gear comparison. What did I conclude? I concluded, which one is the superior ape? Oh, superior, super, same word. They do have superpowers, but not in a Marvel comic sense.
Right. No, I just think, they're great strength.
Oh, yeah.
They probably can leap really far.
A great writer named...
I think they have a very unique voice box.
All that.
Or some kind of leftover air sacs.
Their strength, their intelligence is probably super in many ways.
Yeah.
The size of their cranium is way beyond Leakey's minimum for a humanoid brain pan of 800 cc's. It could be a lot bigger than that. I expect their intelligence is probably quite high, developed possibly in very different ways in which ours are. Why did their eyes turn red? I don't know if they do. There are a lot of stories of that. No other apes are known to have a tapetum, the layer that dogs and cats, bears have that shines either green or amber, or sometimes red. Some think they have a red tapetum. That would be very interesting, evolutionarily very odd. I don't know. I really don't know that answer to that. But I do think, they've got extraordinary powers. We can call them super. strength, their mobility, their agility,
their mobility,
their stride. They are absolutely super animals in every way. But so are you, Doug. So are you, Jeff. So am I. We're all super in our own things that we're able to do.
Yep.
I just want to make the distinction between natural and supernatural, because to me, the natural is not wanting in any way that requires the supernature.
I agree 100%. You don't need any kind of supernatural explanation for Bigfoot. You don't need it.
I don't think you need it for anything.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah, no, I have, after, basically respectfully trying to get this topic brought into the science realm through Legend Science and working with Jeff and
you're doing good work.
All the forensics and John Bender novel. And now I'm working on Legend Science too. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, that's wonderful.
Yes, and Jeff is writing Legend Science 2 book.
Oh, good.
But here's what's exciting, Robert. We have some new categories of evidence. And one is the skin oil that they're leaving. And there's a, there's a chemical compound in their skin oil that's different than any other ape. All apes have their own exact chemical signature.
Yeah.
And they leave these fingerprints.
There's a word for that. This kind of detecting of a creature by a very little bit of evidence. There's a term for that. It's going on more and more with different species.
Oh, like eDNA and things like.
Yeah, excuse me. I have to just. I'm sorry. I'm on a Zoom right now. Can't talk right now. Call me back. Sorry.
Oh no, that's awesome.
Sorry.
I think it would have been fun. You should have taken the call and finished it. That would have been cool.
It would have been a butterfly guy.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
No, I wouldn't.
You should call him back. I like when our show goes a weird way. Hey, we had one guest drive off.
Yeah, weird.
He drove off in a car.
Yeah.
And he kept his interview going while he's driving.
I couldn't do that. I do not own a cell phone.
Gosh.
I do not own a smartphone or cell phone.
I heard that. Good for you.
It's not good. I'm not smug about it. I know it limits me. It's going to be a real pain in the ass when I go to Peru. I know it might get me in trouble. But
hey, we all, I'm in my 60s, and we all survived a lot of years without cell phones.
Yeah, no, not a lot. I use the computer well and things. I just I choose my tools very carefully. I don't want them to choose me. And I would not criticize anybody else's use of any tool. I know it's not for me. I don't think I'm a good and strong enough person to live with the cell phone.
Yeah. So what do you think about the footprint cast? So you think that we've got so many of them at this point?
Yeah,
it's kind of overkill.
I think I finished my list. Oh no, funnily enough, that was the last thing on my list I didn't say, is the accretion of many, many more casts. Now I could have also said, I could have named a number of our other great colleagues.
Well, what would you name Bigfoot if you could give him a scientific name? What would you name it? Talk about putting a guy on the spot.
Well, I have named new kinds of butterflies, so I've done this.
Oh,
I got to name a new butterfly.
That's cool.
That we found after my late wife Tia. It's a subspecies of the Mariposa copper. It's now named Tharsalia mariposa tea after Tia. I named another subspecies of that I discovered in 1975 out in the Ozette bogs. It took me a long time to get it named. I named it for the Makah Indians, whose land it's on. That's a Makah copper. If I were to name Bigfoot, in the first place, I wouldn't do it on my own. If I were to say, for example, be back up there in the Dark Divide and find a roadkill, find a bone, I would not try to do it on my own. I'm not an anthropologist. I would want to be one of the co-describers. They're called first describers. But I would bring Jeff in for sure. I would have brought Peter in, but Peter's gone. But certainly at least Jeff, I'd ask him to do it with me, and to do it in the best taxonomic traditional manner with all the details that one needs for such paper.
Yeah.
And to obtain publication in a major source, Science or Nature.
Has anybody done taxonomy, even if it's not going to be accepted, but just as basically a rehearsal of what we kind of do know?
Yes.
Has anybody done that?
Yeah, Grover Krantz did.
Oh, he did. I didn't know that.
He published it.
How the hell did I miss that?
Well, he couldn't publish it in the straight press because he didn't have a specimen. They wouldn't take it. I don't know where he published it, but he named it. He gave it a name, Gigantopithecus canadensis.
Okay.
Canadensis is a little unfortunate because it implies it occurs only in Canada. And funnily enough, and it's a common species name, the beaver, the otter, and the elk are all named canadensis. Cervus canadensis is the elk, Lutra canadensis is the river otter, and Castor canadensis is the beaver. And it suggests they all occur in Canada, which they do, and where they were probably first collected, but they occur all through North America. So I actually like Jeff's species name for his ichnospecies very much, Amera borealis, North America. That'd be a great species name. And species names can be reused. Well, and there's no rules between ichnospecies and zoological species. Maybe even his ichnospecies might be able to be recycled. I don't know. You have to think hard about the genus name and decide. With the DNA, you see, once DNA were analyzed, then we'd have a cladogram, and we could understand where its real evolutionary affinities lie. Is it closer? Did its emergence from the ape line happen closer to the time the chimps diverged, or Homo habilis diverged, or Australopithecines diverged, or the Florizensis hobbits diverged, or gorilla diverged, or Pongo, the orangs emerged, or when humans emerged.
So you haven't settled on one ancestry of Bigfoot.
It cannot be done. It simply cannot be done without biological material, and probably not from one bone. Now, what Grover did it from was the reconstruct. His greatest contribution.
Yep, I got one right here.
Was the reconstruction of the skull of Gigantopithecus.
Yes.
Not everybody accepts that he did it right. Nobody could know. But he had teeth. I think he had one jaw fragment plus the teeth, and he had physics, and he had geometry and trigonometry. And between them all, he reconstructed a pretty darn compelling view. And we know this animal really did exist. And I tell people this, and this blows people's minds. I say, if the fossil record is your criterion for existence, some of these people who can't see the muscles in the Patterson-Gimlin movie, I'll say to them, okay, you're dead set that it cannot exist. Would you accept existence in the fossil record? Yeah. I say, and what if an animal isn't in the fossil record? Should that exist? And they say, well, maybe, maybe not. Not everything's in the fossil record, but it's a stroke against them. Well, guess what? Chimpanzees and gorillas have not been found in the fossil record. Somebody told me recently they thought a chimp had, but I haven't seen the proof of that yet.
Well, we don't even have modern deer in the fossil record.
No, but their near ancestors are. But
yeah, we have their old ancestors, but I'm talking about modern.
That's a very good point. Very good point. But Bigfoot is in the fossil record.
Yeah.
It is Gigantopithecus. And Grover's view was that the 4 or 5 existing species, 4 in Asia and 1 here, probably belong to the genus Gigantopithecus that has survived. And that's possible. But we cannot know these things until we have a cladogram, until we have some DNA, see its closest lineage. And
but
then,
my argument, and I have used this, I've said, we don't have one fossil record of any modern bear, deer, elk, moose, not the modern ones.
Oh,
but
we
we actually may.
We have plenty of Pleistocene ones. There are 500.
Well, yeah, but they were 10 times bigger.
Yeah, they're bigger. There are bears in the Liberia.
We have the relatives, but we don't have like a modern white-tailed deer fossil.
There's one human being in that.
So if the world got obliterated, so here's my point.
Okay.
If the world got obliterated, there would be no record of white-tailed deer, no record of bear, black bear, no record of grizzlies, polar bear, nothing, because there's no modern fossils of any of these animals, and yet I can go back here and grab a fossil of what could be Bigfoot.
Yeah, that takes my argument even farther, makes it even stronger. I'm going to borrow that.
Please. I think it's a good argument.
Thank you. So the fossil.
Well, and the fact that it's so recent, Gigantopithecus, I mean, isn't it estimated at least close to 80,000 years ago? That's
100. Yeah, we don't know exactly.
That's
I don't
so
believe
recent.
in carbon dating that it's that accurate.
Well, my point is 80,000 years ago is not even a blink of the eye. That's not even.
It's not, but I think you may be off by an order of magnitude. I think it's closer to 1 million on Gigantic.
I don't think. I mean, you're probably right. I don't want to argue, but I read that it was pretty recent. I don't know.
Well, I'm the one that I did carbon dating. I borrowed the teeth. It was amazing. They gave them to me. But I borrowed the teeth from the and brought them to Max Planck.
Of Giganto?
Yeah.
You got you borrowed the teeth of Giganto?
Borrowed them, yeah. And then we took them to Max Planck, and they aged them and did all this stuff because we were also tried to do a DNA extraction.
What did they come up with?
They're not as old as, I mean, it was, as I remember, it was about 300,000 to 400,000 years. I'd have to go back and watch the program. I'll get you a copy of this program.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
It's pretty amazing.
From what I've read, I think it's probably in that order of magnitude, hundreds rather than tens. But
once again, I don't believe in carbon dating. It's very inaccurate. I know guys that do it, and even they go, well, it's, there's a lot of variables.
A lot of variables in carbon dating.
Yeah, and there's.
But anyway, your point is, even if it were 1 million,
that's still.
That's recent.
Yeah, that's still very recent.
It is recent. Yeah, and that's my point.
But the other point is,
wasn't that long ago.
Gigantopithecus blackie still might be alive roaming our forests.
Sure.
Because no great ape.
I've been in some of the very, very wildest parts of China. And even there, it's a little difficult for me. That's a lot farther bridge to me than Bigfoot in Ohio is.
That's good. No, I love it.
So many people in China.
I don't ever claim to know anything, Robert. Nothing. I know zero. But what I do know is, if I was to be bet a buck here, a buck there, I would make some assumptions, but I probably am wrong on all of them.
So you probably want to hear what my actual feeling is.
What are they? What do you think they are?
Because people get really frustrated.
You're a betting guy.
People get frustrated with me because I won't give an up or down. And that's not coy. I'm not being coy.
No.
Excuse me. It's that I am trained as a scientist. I also have that, I have that proclivity. I didn't come from Missouri, but I do believe in show me.
Okay.
Let me just sidetrack to Robert Hoffman, who says, I'm fascinated by the reports, stories, legends of giants in North America. You know what, Robert? This is an interesting thing I came to. I didn't come to too many absolutely original ideas in the book, but I had a couple that were pretty fresh. And one is that, Native Americans don't have an idea of monkey or ape. That's why they think that they're all humans of some altered type. But the other one is this. And this wasn't new with me, but every culture in the world, probably, we know many, 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 have giants. Giant legends are everywhere, throughout storytelling, throughout history, throughout literature. Yep. The difference is that the Bigfoot and its Yeti, Almasti, Dalmas, Yaoran equivalents in Asia might be legends, yes, but also real. Yes, Bigfoot is an ape. There are everything in the lineage that came out of apes are still apes. We are certainly apes. There's no question that humans are apes, chimps are apes, gorillas are apes. We're all apes. If it's not an ape, then it didn't evolve from anything close to a gorilla. It had to evolve from a different primate line. Its characteristics are far more ape-like than anything else. But some people think ape is a pejorative, that it's less than human. It's not. Humans are apes.
Right.
Relatively sophisticated apes. Bigfoot may be a much more sophisticated ape in many regards, but they're certainly apes, in my view. Yours may be different. Okay, so our giant legend may actually be real. Do I think it is or don't I? I'm trained as a scientist, so I want to say, show me the definitive evidence. I have not seen that for Bigfoot. Now, what I've seen is that list. And, I could also talk about our colleagues like Cliff Barrickman. I didn't mention Cliff. The fact that Cliff, who is a very high intelligence, a fine fellow, and a really nice guy with a great museum, the fact that he is, well beyond an open mind there, that opens my mind for it. I could talk about people. But the collective evidence of thousands of footprints, many of them pretty profound. Now, what I haven't told you too is that, and you need to know this for my answer, I have now found impressive tracks 3 times. The one time I told you about and showed you the picture, up there on Elk Pass. The second time was 9 years later when I went there with a Japanese film crew, long before the movie Dark Divide was made. The Japanese film crew came and did a piece on Bigfoot. I got them together with some other Bigfoot people, but they went out with me to the Dark Divide, photographed the place. They said, can we see Bigfoot now? Can we see tracks? No, but I'll take you into the old growth noble fir where it occupies and it wilder than you've ever seen. And while we were out there, Doug and Jeff and ladies and gentlemen, I, off the trail in the wilderness, almost stepped on a rather good track that was in loose soil that had been pumice covered, but now the duff had made some soil there. Everything around it was either rotten snow or rock or pumice or needles. But this one track happened to land on receptive soil. And the Japanese film crew went bat crap. And it made their entire trip and paid their whole budget to photograph that track, which I took a cast of, but it was too cool. And the cast was too thin and it didn't settle. But a reporter from the Oregonian went out there with me the next week. They were doing a new book review of the new edition of my book, and he wanted to interview me. And I said, we'll do better. Come out. And he photographed the cast and put in that paper. So there are photographs of it. That was the second time. You know what it was? About 300 yards from where the first ones were 9 years later. Now fast forward another 10 years to one of those Bigfoot Chamber of Commerce things they used to do in the gorge at a place called Home, Washington. It was called Bigfoot Days, D-A-Z-E, I think, or something like that. And they had vendors and speakers and a guy in a Bigfoot suit selling Bigfoot burgers, all the stuff, scavenger hunt. And several of us were there, Larry Lund, myself, with tables and our books, and they're selling casts and things. Well, when I went home, again, I did not want to go back on the highway. I wanted to go up through the Dark Divide. I could get home that way. It was in the summertime. So I went across the Dark Divide again. And up there, just before I got to Elk Pass from the south, there was a logging road that I had never taken. So I took it, and a little ways in, there was a silt bank that didn't get pumice or ash because it was south-facing. The north-facing places got the ash flow. This was south of the ash flow. So it was native silt. There were 2 horizons of 2 different densities, a line between the 2, a contact, and rodent holes in that contact where the soil was weaker, ground squirrels. And lo and behold, going up the angle of repose in that silt were a set of tracks. Again, about a 4-foot step, 8-foot stride, several of them going up to that contact and the rodent holes. And then there were big holes that could be interpreted as hand plunges of an animal into the rodent hole. And both the Klickitats and the Yakimas talk a lot about Bigfoot dislodging rocks for pikas and ground squirrels and marmots, and also hand plunging for rodents. So this may well have been a Bigfoot hunting place, but not only that. There was a second pair of tracks that went right along with it, adjacent to it, with a much shorter step, much shorter stride, much smaller feet. So I think it was a parent and young going up this slope, and I think it was a tutelary experience. The adult teaching the young to plunge the hand into the hole to catch the rodent. I couldn't get tracks because the silt was, too loose. to take an impression, but I could get a measurement. And in all cases, the one with the Japanese film crew, this one, and the very first ones, the measurements of the best track were between 15 and a half and 16 inches long. I think 5 3/4 across the instep and 3 1/4 at the heel. Same measurements, 3 sets of tracks, spanning 20 years, and this third place was about a quarter mile from the original place. So in one location, within 1 square mile less, 3 sets of tracks, very same proportions, all wilderness locations, no place where humans were going, no evidence of other human activity there, certainly not fakes, over 20 years. So this speaks to the possibility of a single animal or a family, because there was the young, living in a home range over a 20-year period. That is pretty damn compelling.
That's pretty cool.
And then there's one final thing. 3 years ago, in the month of May, I was on a butterfly expedition over to the Hanford area. Have I found burial mounds? No, I have not. I've looked. I did see a possible Sasquatch game burial winter mound underneath a great deal of broken off, rotting noble fir blocks. When the pileated woodpecker pulls them off, they throw them hither and thither. When Bigfoot piles it, they pile them in a mound, and there was still snow. It was still cold under there, and it could have been a Bigfoot refrigerator over the winter, but I didn't have time. I was with the Japanese film crew. I pointed it out to them to photograph so they'd have something. I said, that might be a Bigfoot fridge, but I didn't have time to dig it up. Never found home mounts. But 3 years ago in May, nest mounts. 3 years ago in May, I am coming over White Pass, which is Highway 12. I would too. That runs between Yakima and I-5. And it is the northern boundary of the Dark Divide area. So everything I did was just south of that. And I'm coming over that highway. Now, excuse me. When I was working on the book, one of the best biologists I knew and a great biology teacher who told me not to take the book contract, not to take the grant, because it would ruin my scientific reputation forever. He thought sure it would. It was a hoax. It was crazy. And I said, Jim, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. I've written a bunch of Bigfoot books. That hasn't typecast me, so I'm not worried about Bigfoot. Well, anyway, this guy, this very same guy, thank you, Steve, you too, he called me up and he said, Bob, I've seen it. I said, Jim, seen what? He said, I saw it, Bob. He said, I was coming over Highway 12, coming down from Packwood down toward Randall in the late afternoon and in the late sun, nobody else on the road there. I'm coming down about 100 yards in front of me. It comes walking off the right side of the road, pauses in the middle of the road, squats, and urinates. And he watches this, and he starts driving closer, and he gets within 100 feet, and is still urinating, and he finishes and gets up and takes a standard patty walk, one of the best known symbols in the world now, I will say, the classic symbol. That's what he saw, walking off the road into the forest. Hard pan on both sides, no tracks, but the pool of urine was there. This is pre-DNA days. He didn't have any way to take a sample. So let's go back now to 3 years. And so he said, Bob, I apologize for what I said. He said, I went from a Bigfoot non-believer to a Bigfoot born again in 10 seconds. That was profound to me.
That's well put.
Could have put that on my list. So now let's fast forward. That was 1989, 90. Oh, I was working on the book, probably 91, 92. So let's come forward 25 years. And here we are a couple of years ago. I'm coming over Highway 12, same stretch of highway, and a little farther east, not much. And there's a whole herd of elk jumps across the road in front of me. That's how people die, and trucks get wrecked and elk die and so on. But I was going slow enough. I was able to stop, not by much. And after that, this is a major highway. It's only 2 lane, but it's quite a bit of traffic. And I was going slow after that. It was Sunday evening. There were trucks on my tail. And so I'm going slow because where there's one elk, there's going to be more elk. I didn't want to hit one. So I'm only going about 10, 15 miles an hour. And I get a little ways, and through my peripheral vision, which is pretty good, I see animal movement on my left, up the roadside slope, up the embankment. And I'm going slow enough, and I think, oh, it's another elk. So I swivel my head, and what do I see but this?
You do.
And I see it for 1 to 2 seconds.
Wow.
If that. And what it's doing is this figure is coming out. There was low vegetation on the embankment. At the top of the embankment, about 8 feet vertical, maybe 9, was forest, but it was fairly sparse, thin forest. Trees about 8 to 10, 12 inches in diameter, and space between them. And I saw this movement come out from behind 2 of those trees that were like this through a very brief, maybe 2 to 3 feet, if that, open space, and then behind other trees and disappear. And I couldn't even stop because there's trucks on my tail.
Gosh.
And that's what I saw. And it was fading light, but it was not dusk. It was cloudy, and there was snow up at the pass, so I had to get up there and get over it. So I didn't even stop to go back because there was all this traffic. There was blizzard at the pass, and I could see, the chances of finding tracks were nil. So I just went on, and I'm thinking all the way, I'm thinking, what? Well, I'm about 20 miles now from where I had the 3 tracks and the sound experience and the rock experience.
Wow.
Stick experience. So I'm right there at the edge of the and so it drives me crazy. I can't get right back there. And I couldn't for the next week. But I called Cliff and Peter. And Cliff went back there. And he looked in Cliff Berkman of Friendly Bigfoot. And he looked and he looked and he looked. But it was hardpan there. And there was no soil to take a track. And he found no evidence. But he did corroborate my description of the site and its location.
Yeah.
It was very helpful. So when I was next able to get back there, I went there, nothing to see. But just about 1.5 miles, 2 miles east of there is a lodge on Titan Lake. And the lodge has a great big statue of Bigfoot out in front of it, carved with a chainsaw. I referred to that early in our conversation. And I went in and I talked to the woman behind the cash register, and I say, yeah, so you've been seeing any of the big guy lately, any reports lately? And she said, every day. She said, my father and brother and I run this place. They won't even talk about it anymore. They're so tired of it, and they've had so many encounters.
Wow.
This is about 1.5 miles from where I saw the movement. And it was brown, by the way, it was brown. And the reason I don't think it was an elk is that I saw the head that was above the torso, not in front of the torso.
Right.
And I saw the legs, which were long. I saw the swinging motion. And it didn't have a big white ass like elk have, or a trailing butt. So
is this sighting in your book?
No, it's before that. Otherwise, I mean, it came after the
After.
Otherwise, it would be number 8 or number 1.
Well, do you realize how important your sighting is? I know it was only 2 seconds, but
yeah, it was.
It's very important.
It's important to me.
It needs to. Would you be willing to tell that story on Legend Meets Science?
Oh, sure. And I'll send you my. I don't send it everywhere, but email me about. I might share my trip report with you. I don't want it generally out there though, because
we don't need to reveal the area.
No, it's not that. I just don't have time for it to be generally out there.
We don't want to cut into your time.
Hey, look, I'm 77. I got several more books I want to write.
There's a lot of ways we can do it, but
I just don't want to put it out there like it's some big deal, because
my
it's not.
point is, Robert, you have a lot of power. You don't know it, maybe.
Well, yes, but I want to wield it well. And I don't want to
I
wield
understand
it
that.
on a weak observation that might
This
not
would be a good place to
and I
do
don't
it.
want to get hundreds and hundreds of inquiries done.
This will be a good place to do it because
I'll do that.
it's in good company of all other
I'm
scientists.
very happy to tell the story anywhere. I'm
Yeah.
just not going to send out my trip report.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
detail
and yes, it could be life-changing. Just what you need.
Yeah, I don't want that. I'll do that if I ever find some DNA. But anyway, we're down to now my final word, which is, do I or don't I believe?
Yeah.
After all that, I've given you some pretty compelling experiences that I've had, and they're extremely compelling. Thank you. I will try. It's easy to wield perceived power in a way that makes a mess.
Well, you're very humble, but you do have. Well, when I talk about when I say you have power to raise the bar a tiny bit, which we need a lot.
I've tried
and power to give other scientists courage to come forward.
I've tried very hard to do that with the book. And what I try to preach in that book is please have an open mind. Go into these things critically, but smartly, and think about. I don't even know if I use the word parsimony, but think about simple, meaningful, intelligent solutions to things. They're usually the ones that work. I've tried very hard to do that in the book, and to some extent, I think the movie does that too. I think the movie says, look, this is a surprise coming out of left field, but the guy goes out of there clearly having thought it was a stupid legend, which he says in the first scene in the store. And I was not that way at the time. Of course, you know that. But the guy comes out, the David Bob character comes out clearly open-minded and maybe more. So that, I think even the movie pushes that idea. So answer.
It does.
Answer. Do I believe? Do I not believe? Well, I'll take the leaf out of Grover's book because I think it's one thing he said. I won't use the word belief. I believe in many things, but belief does have a great deal in common with faith. It doesn't require proof. It doesn't require evidence. A belief does not require evidence. Otherwise, a great deal of our spiritual and cultural fabric would fall apart if belief required evidence. The problem comes when a belief without evidence is taken as fact and presented as fact. There is a difference. And Grover knew that difference, and I do too. And I will not call something a fact unless the scientist in me, the harshest critic I have, of course my heart says yes. Of course my spirit says yes. Of course my desire says yes. Everything in me says yes, it's there, except the scientist, who does not say it's not there by any means. It simply says, my evidence is profound, and here's my answer. The actual physical existence of Bigfoot in the Northwest, at least, is the best answer. It's the best hypothesis I can present right now.
The simplest.
Not just the simplest, but yes, the simplest it is. It is the simplest. You're quite right. I do not have another hypothesis that doesn't involve complicated things that would take care of it. And you know who said that so very well? I know you must know the book on Bigfoot by John Napier. What's it called? It's called something Bigfoot. But he was the actual curator of primates at the Smithsonian Institution. Smithsonian Institute. And he decided to study it in the 70s. And he came out at the end and he said, I'm stuck. He said, either Bigfoot exists, which I would consider impossible, or it's all a hoax of such an elaborate nature that it beggars the imagination, not to mention Occam's razor, that it could possibly be accomplished, which seems to me, what's the word? This is very important. Unbelievable. And he said, I choose to believe the impossible over the unbelievable. or something like that. So he said the same thing. My hypothesis is that it exists and has done the things that I have seen and that the others have seen and photographed. That's my working hypothesis.
Okay.
Does that mean I believe it? It does not. Does it mean it's fact? It does not. It means it's that Pyle guy's hypothesis.
Well, it's, you know what it means? It means when I'm picking up, it's worth investigating. How's that?
Pyle means absolutely that. And I'll go you one better than that. When I went into Bigfoot, excuse me, when I got the grant and I went into the Dark Divide and I went into the study, which by the way made an absolutely delightful year of research before I ever even went into the Dark Divide. Hey, save that Smithsonian comment for a minute. I want to come back to it.
Okay.
Save that for a minute. Before I ever even, I'll just say it quickly. Smithsonian suspect to show skeletons. That's right. You know whose skeletons are on display in the Smithsonian? Do you know? Grover Krantz and his wolfhound.
Oh yeah, and his dog and his wolfhound.
They're there. So
Yeah.
they're real. Okay, now let me get back to this. I went into it with an open mind. And of course, my history, I really wanted to believe it, as we all do. We all share that. We all have that desire and hope. But I was a scientist. So I went in, 50-50. I don't have a dog in this race. I don't have to prove it or disprove it. I wrote that into the terms. That's why I got the grant. That's why I got the book. Plus the cool name. Mostly the cool name, I think. But when I came out, having had the tracks and the sounds, it upped my ante. And I don't think I put a number on it then, but I'd say I probably came out of that whole thing maybe 75%. And so when I finished the book, I was able to say, folks, I don't know. And I'm not here to tell you whether you should know or not. But I've seen enough, learned enough that for you to dismiss it out of hand, or me or anybody else, is foolish. Consider it and have an open mind. So I thought that was pretty good. I was thrilled because I did not expect to come out with an open mind. I expected to come out thinking of all my year of research with the Indians, the tabloids, the book, the tapes, the movies, the yearly websites, all that. I expected to come out saying, oh, great stories, great tradition, wonderful Native American myths and legends, but no cigar. But I did not. It went the other direction. And now, with 2 more track sightings over 20 years in the same area, and my weak but very impressive to me sighting, I'd say I'm damn near 95%. And that's the best I can give you.
That's pretty good. Do you think your trek across the Dark Divide changed any of your percentage?
Oh, yes.
Oh, did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the research year, yes, did some, but absolutely. No, that's what I was saying. I went from probably 50 to 75.
Did anything happen to you on that trip you haven't told anybody?
I have not told anybody.
Yeah. Did something happen to you on that trip? I don't care what it was. Did something happen you have not told anybody?
I put almost everything in the book of any interest.
Yeah,
I thought would be of any
we
interest.
all hold back stuff. Everybody does. You can't be any different.
I mean, I even put in some things that were very weak. For example, I went to Hat Mountain and went from there over to Snagtooth Mountain on one of the very few flat places on top of the Dark Divide.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. There's some meadows and some swamps up there. It was a pretty cool terrain. And this looks like a neat hideaway. It's like in the Indian Heaven Wilderness, there's one crater that is intact with steep sides down, and in the middle is a little lake and some meadows. Very few people have ever been down in there. And the one guy that did said that's the one place he felt the real presence of Bigfoot, I kind of felt that way up on that flat. I really felt something.
It's pretty cool.
Now, I don't give credence to much of that stuff, but let's confess, thanks, Kenny, that the and Greg, the electromagnetic sphere is powerful and capable of a lot of things that we don't know.
Yeah.
So telepathy, various kinds of things that some people think might be paranormal, might not be at all paranormal, might well fall within the laws of physics.
Right.
You know that a dog can perceive you coming 2 blocks away.
Well, quantum physics
well,
falls in the line of physics, and
then
we don't even know what it is yet,
and
really.
then there's, of course, that. So when people say they have a feeling, I do not discount that. Feelings could very well be real.
What
Most
about
of-
infrasound? Any thoughts on infrasound? People reporting the infrasound getting zapped and feeling anxiety and needing to leave. And
Could be, but how do you know whether it comes from within or without? That's the problem with all feelings and all beliefs and all faiths.
Right.
How do you know if it came from within or without?
But the nice thing about infrasound is we know other animals use it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And so. But do other apes? Does it belong in our evolutionary line, or would it have to be reinvented? Now that does happen. Convergent evolution reinvents things.
Although there are some new papers on gorillas using infrasound.
Well, if that's true, then it might be a big stretch. But
have you ever heard? I got to ask this because David will kill me if I don't. David Ellis, have you ever heard any kind of hummingbird sound where there was no hummingbird, or a buzz in your, kind of a vibration in your ear, or like a hummingbird wings in your ear, but you looked and there was no hummingbird?
Yes, but that's my backyard. I know they're damn well hummingbirds, and they simply disappeared before I got my eyes around them.
I'm talking about out in the bush,
No,
like in middle of the night or anything. Nothing.
No, I have not. Now, up in this high flat area, there were tracks going across the marsh, and I had a feeling. But they could have been hiker tracks. They could have been bear tracks. They even could have been elk tracks that had gone all sloppy in the silt. And my feeling could have been something I had for lunch. So I didn't write about that in the book because it was just too trivial. There's things like that didn't meet the bar of being interesting enough. I didn't write about every dump I took. I didn't write about every time I tried to fish and didn't catch anything. I didn't, there are lots of things that
I just mean, did you have any kind of, I'm not suspecting that you did. I'm just asking. Because sometimes people go, yeah, there was one thing I saw. I saw a UFO fly over me while I was camped, and I just didn't.
Because I've had some very striking UFO sightings. So, of course, I looked all the time, and I had nothing the celestial of other than the normal, wonderful celestial spheres, but nothing unusual there. And if I had, now that's a good question. If I had seen what I saw in the Oregon Cascades one time, for which I had no better hypothesis than UFO, would I have included it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I might have not, because of the confusion that I think a lot of people make between these fields. I might have selectively omitted it. That's a really good point. But, I'm sorry to give you a dissatisfying answer, but I cannot think of anything of significance. I can't think of anything about Bigfoot of significance or even suspicion. I would have found a way to put it in the book.
Okay, I believe you. I actually do believe you.
Might have been some embarrassing things that happened to me.
Did something embarrassing happen?
Lots. I mean, when I almost fell over that cliff, that was damn embarrassing, also damn near lethal.
Yeah.
I could have gone on more about how stupid that was.
Yeah.
I could have gone on how stupid it was not to investigate the water better. No, I realized lots of my own frailties and stupidities. And there was a time. I mean, I was a younger man then, much younger man then. 1990? 90. So I was only 53 years old. I think something like that. And I had a heavy backpack, 75 pounds much of the time. And one time I was up on Juniper Ridge, and the storm came up. They do a thing with this in the movie. It's pretty cool. And I got underneath the hems of some Krumholtz alpine firs. And I realized that might not be the best thing. My butterfly net had metal, so I put that at some distance. Also, my pack frame had metal. I didn't know what to do to protect myself from lightning. I'm very close.
You haven't lived till you've been on the tundra in a lightning storm.
I have been.
You have? Oh,
yeah,
geez,
I was also up on the rock slide on the slope of Mount Gothic in Colorado during lightning storm when it struck very close, and I'm awfully surprised I didn't get some ground flash. No, I was real close.
I've been in a small, a frame old canvas tent in the tundra way up by way up in Northwest Territories during the worst lightning storm I could ever comprehend. And I thought, we're gone, we're dead.
Glad you came through.
And we did, yeah. We came through.
I was almost killed in a hailstorm one time with hail this size that killed 6 cattle in the field next to me, but my brother hauled me into an old hollow cottonwood tree and it saved our lives. It was the basis for my book called The Thunder Train. But in this case, the lightning did not come all that close. I was afraid of it. But when it came time to reassemble my stuff and get back up with the big heavy pack and everything was wet, I could damn near not stand up again. It was a real comedy show, and it wasn't very fun. It wasn't very pretty, and I did not write about that, I don't think. Yeah, there were some times when my humanity came through just a little too bluntly. So it's a good thing that David Branch portrays me as a doofus, because in many ways I was just more wood smart than he was, really.
Yeah. Jeff, is there anything that we've missed?
Man,
brain going.
I don't recall a guest that was more captivating, to be honest. I've been just riveted.
Thank you. Whereas
a couple questions I had. If did anybody in the movie production, kind of have a change of mind or about the change of heart about this? Did anyone go in as a skeptic and kind of come out with a changed mind?
Yeah, and did you try to change anybody's mind?
I tried to open minds, that's all.
Or was the crew curious?
Oh, the film crew?
Yeah, were they curious about the Bigfoot?
Oh, them. Oh, I thought you were talking to your people here now.
No.
No, the film production.
Oh, I thought you were asking.
No, the film production people.
If any of them had their minds open.
David Cross, is he believed? Is he?
David's pretty skeptical.
Okay.
But he's a real city boy.
But did anybody approach you in the cast or crew and say, hey, tell me more about this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Heather was one, the aforementioned Heather. I would say the majority of them had thank you. I hope that vigor and energy show up in Chile in a couple of weeks, up at high altitude. I really appreciate that. Heather was one. Yes. I mean, I remember the people on that crew with great affection. It wasn't a huge crew. The film was not, it wasn't a low budget film, but it wasn't a big budget film. And the crew was modestly sized, but I'd say almost everybody evinced a strong interest. Nobody said that, not one person told me they thought it was hogwash. And Tom Putnam, the filmmaker, is definitely open-minded. He loved the book. That's why he wanted to make the movie. Plus he was from that area, not right in the Dark Divide, but pretty close. Boy, Eagle Cap could get you with lightning, couldn't it, Greg? But I'd say almost everybody on the crew was already interested.
Sure.
Pretty much probably already open. The Native American cast, with whom I spent a lot of time, no problem with them. They were all right there, and they were thinking, what are these honkies even asking the question for, But yeah, I hope it opened them even more. But David was a tough sell. And he won't say he thinks it's stupid or hogwash, but I think has a pretty urban sensibility. He really enjoyed being in the forest. He really did experience some fear and some. And by the way, that was an extremely physical role.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I could not have done it. They never would have cast me at my age. But even if they had, I could not have done it. And there were 2 other well-known actors whom I am not allowed to name, who were almost cast, and I don't believe either one of them could have done it either. But David, even though he was well into his 40s, I think, maybe his young 40s, he was able to do it well. He was fit. I don't know why he's so fit as an urban guy, but he's fit. And, some of the scenes have blood, and it wasn't fake blood. And that scene inside the lava tube which is bigger and deeper and more than I was in. Never met Paul Stamets, but I love his book, and it's so funny. And Paul Stamets is the greatest of the mushroom men in my book. I haven't met him. I should meet him. But anyway, he that's his own blood in a few of those scenes. And there's one where he rolls down the rocks in his underpants, of course.
Yeah.
And he's kind of bloody at the end of that. That's real. That was a bruising episode. It was hard on the crew too, getting into some of those places. Filming that. I think that lava tube sequence is not only one of the strangest, but one of the really great scenes in recent film that I have seen. It's a small masterpiece. It does go beyond.
I can say this: it's much worse in those things than what was portrayed.
Oh boy, they had to go way down, and it was cold, and it was the rocks were very sharp, and it was rough.
I shot an episode of Mysterious Encounters in those damn things, and oh crap, that was crazy. We were in there all day, the whole day.
We were just lucky that nobody got seriously hurt on the shoot. It was an extremely physical shoot.
Yep.
David was really well cast. I thought he was a really good casting choice.
He was good.
I'm glad you thought so.
Yeah.
Some of the minor characters were just brilliant.
I really
the whole movie was well cast. Absolutely.
I think they took some of their cues for David from Never Cry Wolf.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think so, which is good. It was a brilliant movie, Never Cry Wolf. I love that movie.
Yeah. Well, I know a funny story about it. I worked on another movie that was filmed over in Eastern Washington, near the Army Rangers, over near Moses Lake, and it was it starred Tom Selleck. And who's the big filmmaker? He's dead now. He's also a physicist and he's a Renaissance man. He made some very big films, science fiction and
Orson Welles.
No, in recent.
In recent times.
Crichton, Michael Crichton.
Okay.
Michael Crichton was the director. Tom Selleck was the star. Woman from the dancing movie. She was a female star. Big. Beals is her last name. What's her first name?
Oh, Jennifer Beal.
Jennifer.
Yeah, she was female. It was a big movie. Pretty big. It was a $7 million movie, and it was a robot movie. It was about robots going wild in the early days of smart robots. And Tom Selleck and Jennifer Beals were robot cops. They were not robotic. They were humans, but they were going out to catch and disable the rogue robots. Kind of a dumb movie. It's not that great, but it is gripping. It's called Runaway.
Runaway, sure.
Runaway.
Yep, that's right.
I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was hired to provide the caterpillars in the opening scene.
You were a caterpillar wrangler.
Exactly. That would have been my credit line if I got one, which I didn't. I was we had a butterfly wrangler in the Dark Divide, and he's categorized as such.
Yeah. I know. I believe that. Oh yeah.
But I was the caterpillar wrangler for that movie, and the robots are picking caterpillars off of the corn and getting rid of them, and I provided the caterpillars, and it was very, very funny. I could tell you funny stories about that, about Tom Selleck, about Michael Crichton all day long. Tom Selleck was a very nice man, but the one story is that I was hired by the props manager for that movie, and while we were waiting around, and I waited for days for my scene, being paid in $100 bills at the end of the day, free beer the whole time. And I shared an air-conditioned trailer with Tom Selleck's stunt double and his light double, who do almost nothing but look like him and have mansions like his in Hawaii. And they talked about women, gold, and cocaine. And I showed them my caterpillars. And they were very polite about it. But the props manager who hired me said, I hope he shoots the scene soon, or he'll just get rid of it. We'll get out of this hot hellhole over here. What he finally did, and it worked out. But while we were waiting around, I was talking to the props manager, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "I did Never Cry Wolves too." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, you know that scene where he cooks and eats the meadow mice, the lemmings, to show that wolves can eat rodents?
Yep.
They don't have to eat all the caribou?" And he said, he really did. The star, I forget the actor's name, he ate all those meadow mice. Except, he said, "I carved each one out of a filet mignon."
Oh, jeez.
That's how movies get made.
Yeah, it was a great movie. I got to
I
go.
haven't seen it in forever.
I went up to Knowlton Lake where the movie was made, and actually got to go fishing with the guy that the real Native American, the real guy's name was Knapp, who the movie was based on, kind of like, your movie and similar. But I got to spend a whole week with Knapp, and
what a great experience.
It was really amazing trip. That was amazing. Knowlton Lake.
And you had no filet mignon up there.
No, I didn't eat any mice.
Yeah, the wrong props guy.
No.
Oh,
I was up there. I was up there filming too, but it's just so beautiful up in the Arctic.
Oh man,
I love it up there.
How are the mosquitoes?
Bad. They're always bad unless it's windy. It's really bad. I went up there with a guy that is an older guy, and I remember one day his face was covered with mosquitoes, like covered. And I said, "Bill, your face is covered with mosquitoes. You need to brush them off." He goes, "They don't bother me." He literally could barely see his skin.
He must become desensitized. But that was one good thing about doing the Dark Divide trip in the autumn, because the biting insects were all gone. If I tried to do that very same trip in July, oh man, mosquitoes and flies would
they would get you. Yeah,
they might have finished me.
Very cool. Well, I think we have to wind it up. Oh my God, before our service shuts us down, and we don't want to be shut down. It was an absolute wonderful, wonderful thing. Meeting you, wonderful interview. You're a great guest.
Absolutely.
I'm going to call you if that's possible, and I need to talk to you.
Okay.
We didn't cover everything.
No, we didn't. We didn't cover for just a little aperitif at the end.
Please.
After the shoot with the caterpillars, the props man had also bought some insects from an LA insect dealer, because he didn't know if they could, if I'd come through. So after they did the caterpillars and it finally worked, Crichton said, "Bring on the bug," because he had one great big green beetle that they called the bug. Well, it was too active, so I had put it on ice with the beer. I said, "Oh, the bug." Meanwhile, I got the attention of the director. Nobody ever gets that for very long, And everybody's looking at me, Tom Selleck, everybody, get the bug. So I go to the ice box, I pull out this big green beetle, and it's moribund from the ice, It's not moving at all, but he wants to see a take with the bug. So I'm here going, and everybody's sitting there watching me. And the third assistant director says, "I can't believe it. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on a goddamn bug."
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Well, that's not Bigfoot, but it was there. And I think our friends probably are there. And I hope to leave this show and leave your listeners with my thanks for honoring me with your presence, to the Klickitats and the Yakimas and all the other people who occupy that land with Tonopah and Bokwis and Sedlatix and Oma long before most of us were here. Let us recognize it was their land, it's still their land, and it's the land of all the animals and plants who occupy it. And I think it's very likely that one of those is the creature we've been sharing tonight, and certainly the Native Americans do still think so. So I hope to leave you with all good blessings and wishes, and especially with an open mind and wide open eyes and your other senses that we're gifted with to the entire world around us. And thank you for having me, Doug.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Gosh, thank you so much.
You have a wonderful show.
And pick up his book, Where Bigfoot Walks. Check out his other books. I'm sure that Bob would be very, very appreciative. And remember that, hold on here. I had this in my head and I had a brain fart. Just remember that you definitely want to believe that something wonderful is about to happen, and it just might. And please take special note that blessings and guardian angels often come with a very heavy disguise. So with that, good night. We love you all. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Jeff. Good night, Bob. Good night, audience.
I call you up in the middle of the night. Been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will always know where we belong. This ain't no ordinary love we got going on. I'll pick you up in my 59 Ford. We head on down the road until we get bored. Just you and me and the sun and the wind. If the rain should start